Small technical delay. I broke the camera. Okay. Well, good morning. Welcome to the regular board meeting of San Mateo County Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, April the 9th, 2013. So the first is, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I have the clerk roll call.
Sure. Supervisor Pine? Here. Supervisor Groom?
Present.
Supervisor Slocum? Here. Supervisor Tissier? Here. President Horsley?
Thank you. Here.
Thank you.
Forgot to say here. Okay, the next item is for public comment, and I noticed there's a number of speakers who want to speak on something in consent. Normally, public comment is limited to items not on the regular agenda. So if you wish to speak on a consent item, and it's you can speak during public comment, because I don't believe that the particular item is going to be taken off of consent. So the first person is Emily Harris, followed by, oh, there's two for Emily Harris. So Emily Harris followed by Roger White.
My intention was to speak on an item, agenda item number.
But it's on consent.
Oh, it is on consent? Okay, great. Then I'll speak up. Good morning. My name is Emily Harris, and I'm the statewide coordinator for Californians United for a Responsible Budget. And I am here because we're extremely concerned about the additional $3 million that Sheriff Monks is asking for the jail expansion plan here in Redwood City. And I think particularly concerned about the growing costs of the jail. There's, based on the agenda, that almost $500,000 of that is for unforeseen changes in the scope of the project and additional costs there. We know that the county has not secured the entire $160 million needed for the jail expansion plan, and we're recently at a meeting in Sacramento where we were learning that if the state, if we wait for the money coming down from the state, which is the SB 1022 money, which won't be available until November, that there's a potential of an additional $20 million added to the price tag of the $160 million from the jail. That was what Sheriff Monks was telling the Board of State and Community Corrections. So I just want to warn everybody, especially those in the room who are here for other agenda items, that the county is going to be continuing to grow the price tag of this jail, and that we hope that you will stop the jail now, and to take into consideration that you're digging yourself deeper and deeper into a budget hole. So we hope that you will pause before continuing to allocate an additional $3 million today. And we know that we'll be coming back board meeting after board meeting after board meeting as we continue to be asked for more and more dollars for this expensive jail.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Next is Roger White, followed by Jesse Moss. So Roger White not here. So Jesse Moss, followed by Mary Porzig. It's on consent, so you can speak during public comment.
Good morning. My name is Roger White. I am an organizer with CURB, Californians United for a Responsible Budget. And we're here today to once again oppose any further county money going to build this jail project. We think that it is an outrage that so many community members have come before this board time after time to make clear that our priorities for the county are around housing, mental health, keeping libraries and parks open, not building more facilities to cage human beings. And we're here to urge you to reconsider funding this jail when there's so many other needs out there for county residents. Thank you.
Okay, Jesse Moss, followed by Mary Ellen Porzick.
Good morning. I'm here to urge you all to stop the construction of this jail. This jail is being built on a toxic waste dump, and the fact that the Board of Supervisors and Sheriff's Department doesn't consider the health and well-being of people locked up as equally deserving of protection from exposure to harmful chemicals is absolutely terrible and can't be looked at as an isolated event. People inside are fighting torturous conditions in jails across the state, and residents who aren't locked up in this county are fighting it as well. The idea that people have to go to jail before they can access addiction treatment, health care, education, and other services exposes gross inequalities within our society that run along lines of race and class. It's because it's communities of color and working class and homeless populations that go to this jail, that fill these jails, and that are the primary targets of state violence. We urge you to not allocate the additional $3 million that you're trying to allocate today for this jail that's already costing the county $160 million. That's all. Thank you.
And thank you. Last speaker is Mary Ellen Porzick on that subject.
Hello, my name is Mary Ellen, and I'm here to speak urge you all to stop construction for the new jail and direct all of those funds to community services and programs. I grew up in this county, and I learned a lot about violence and harm and inequality, because even though this county has a lot of wealth and a lot of affluence, there's a huge problem with inequality here. And the things that I learned was that the way to stop violence and the way to stop harm and to stop crime is by investing in community programs and support for families, support like affordable housing, mental health services, meaningful education, jobs. Every dollar that you spend on this new jail isn't going to be solving problems of harm and inequality. It's actually going to be making those problems even worse. I understand that the conditions in the current jail are deplorable, and so the ways that there are other things that you can do. You can release people, you can spend more funds, and prioritize actually supporting families while they're in their communities, not trying to take people out of their communities and out of their homes and locking them in cages, and then thinking that you can, give them a counselor to talk to every once in a while and all their problems are going to be solved. So you guys have choices. It's not too late. You can still stop this jail. You guys can be leaders for not only the Bay Area or the state, but for the entire country by actually showing some smart budgeting and smart policy work and reprioritizing your investments. And yeah, it's not too late. You can stop the jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker is Martin Fox.
Good morning, President Horsley, honorable members of the board. Thank you for your service to the county. I know that you're here to do your best, and I appreciate it. Please vote to implement Laura's Law and provide persons living with serious mental illness
Marty?
who lack the capacity to understand their need for treatment.
Marty, would you?
Opportunity to have a full life when requested by family members, friends, neighbors, and all those concerned about the safety of the mentally ill persons and public safety. Laura's Law is an effective, efficient, and economical recidivism reduction practice that the United States Department of Justice certified as effective a year ago. The social science experiment called PrEP that cost the county $1.2 million last year has failed so miserably, the Family Services Agency of San Francisco's staff has virtually walked out. The social science experiment the county's health system has conducted on our AB 109 population has engaged less than 10% of its mentally ill population. It is easy to understand why the health system wants to hide its failures in self-congratulation. insulate itself from criticism at the expense of those least likely to speak in their own defense. The health system policy of denying treatment to those who do not seek it voluntarily reveals a cowardly disregard for those it disingenuously claims to represent. It is nothing less than an immoral attack on them and their families. Step out of the dark shadows cast by the health system's policies and into a light that gives people living with mental illness an opportunity to heal, become healthy, and give us hope to their family members, their friends, neighbors, and the community who are concerned about treatment resistance. Please vote to implement Laura's law.
Okay. Next item is to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items. Do any,
I'll move to set the agenda and to approve the consent agenda items unless there's anyone that wanted to pull anything.
There's one item I'd like to pull, which is 37. And a couple comments to make on it. Concerns the inmate calls.
No, the 37 is about the grading.
37?
I'm sorry, I got the numbers mixed up. The one on the inmate calls, what's the number, that 34 then? Go back to it.
34?
Let me just get it here, I'm sorry, my apologies.
It's the
number,
Securus Technologies?
Yeah, 34,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, so I will move to set the agenda and to approve consent items other than pulling item number 34 to the regular agenda.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's set. Next is a presentation of awards. The first presentation of a proclamation designating April 2013 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, Supervisor Dave Pine.
Thank you, President Horsley. Just want to take a moment to recognize that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. We all appreciate how serious a problem child abuse is and how devastating it can be. It's particularly the likelihood of child abuse grows when families are under stress, and there's been a lot of stress over the last few years throughout our community. One thing that our health department has done quite a bit of work on, and it's been a lot of research on, is really showing the long-lasting impacts of child abuse, and it's the kind of trauma that extremely difficult to recover from. So, intervention and prevention can't be any more important than in this particular with this particular issue. Here in the county, we have a group called the Children's Collaborative Action Team, which I sit on, and it is designated as the Child Abuse Prevention Council of San Mateo, which is something that the state requires each county to put in place. So the Collaborative Action Team, we serve as an advisory and advocacy group. So I'd like to introduce a few folks today that will speak briefly about the challenges of child abuse. First would be Renee Zimmerman, who's the coordinator of the Children's Collaborative Action Team, and then Kristen Kimball, who's the program coordinator for Friends of Youth. So if they'd like to spend a moment or two, and then after you're completed, we'll have a proclamation from the board.
Excellent. Good morning. Good morning, President Horsley, board members, and staff. I just wanted to thank you on behalf of the Children's Collaborative Action Team, and we have some members here in the audience as well, for your ongoing support of child abuse prevention efforts in our county. And I wanted to let you know, I have some blue ribbon pins. I know that you may already have one. If you do, please pass that one on to someone else so they can wear it. During the month of April, we will be focusing on reaching out to all schools, public and private, and for the first time, post-secondary institutions in our county to inform them of the new changes to the mandated reporter laws that went into effect effective in January. We are hoping that by increasing the number of individuals required to report suspected child abuse, that more children will be protected. We are also launching a new multi-year child sexual abuse prevention campaign. We're doing this along with the 9 Greater Bay Area counties, and this campaign is titled appropriately Enough Abuse. There's some materials out in the lobby, so folks can grab those. And I will be coming back to you towards the end of the summer to give you a lot more information about the rollout of this campaign, how you can become involved and how everyone in the room can become involved. So very excited about that. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. The Friends for Youth Mentoring Program is focused on keeping youth safe and helping them develop into healthy and productive adults. We are proud to be longtime collaborators with the Children's Collaborative Action Team because mentoring is a proven child abuse prevention strategy. With your support, we have created our SAFE resource and new SAFE training certification program that is used throughout the mentoring field as the highest standard in helping more mentoring and youth-serving agencies put into place tools and processes that help prevent child abuse globally, on a global level. We deeply appreciate the county's support of both Mentoring and Child Abuse Prevention Month. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think, do we need to take formal action to approve the resolution? I will move approval.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Pine. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, and perhaps out of our Measure A funding, we'll be able to do some more prevention work in that area. Next presentation is a presentation of a proclamation designating April 2013 as Parliamentary Law Month. Supervisor Warren Slocum.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. April, in addition to being a Child Abuse Prevention Month, is also, as President Horsley said, Parliamentary Law Month. And as we all know, parliamentary procedure is a very important part of our business, and it's actually vital to our democracy in that it promotes a spirit of justice and fairness, also provides an opportunity for developing leadership. And there's a proclamation today here for Esther Heller. Esther is the Pacific Area Director for the California State Association of Parliamentarians, and she's also a member of the local Zeta unit of the parliamentary chapter. She got involved with parliamentary law and became an expert in Robert's Rules of Order through her involvement with the Girl Scouts at the national level. On a personal note and professional note, and I know Assessor Church may still be here, but Esther was one of our outstanding poll workers that served in San Mateo County, and certainly we all owe her a debt of gratitude, not just for her work in parliamentary law and procedures and Robert's Rules of Order, but also for her dedicated long years of service as a San Mateo County poll worker. And she's joined today by her husband, who is her staff photographer. And Esther, I don't know if you wanted to say a few words. If you do, step over.
Parliamentarians are experts on running meetings, so we're always prepared. Parliamentary law is a concept, as Warren said, that allows us to run, organizations to run under the democratic process, which respects the right of the absent. You've heard the term quorum. That's how that's implemented, and of the minority, which is why some things require a majority vote, some require a 2/3 vote, on rare occasions a 3/4 vote. And we in California State Association of Parliamentarians are always available to serve if any of your organizations are in need of a parliamentarian to help with your elections or more effective running of your meetings. Our organization does go by Robert's Rules of Order, currently the 11th, newly revised, the 11th edition. There are other authorities which other organizations use. By the way, do you all run under? Do you use Robert, or do you use Mr. Jefferson's manual or the descendant thereof?
I frankly have no idea.
Perhaps we should talk.
I think it's the Horsley rule of parliamentary procedure.
Whatever comes into my head.
I think it's the rule of counting to 3. Is what it is.
That would be a majority vote, yes. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. And I think we need a A formal motion?
Yes, you do.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
There we go. Esther and staff photographer.
In my face. Yeah. Okay.
He's on his way.
Okay. Okay, thank you Supervisor Slocum. Next is a presentation of a proclamation designating April 19th, 2013 as Keeping It Clean Earth Day, and it's me. In any case, well, first, before we even talk about that, I also want to mention that Pacifica Beach Coalition is also having an Earth Day celebration on April 20th at Pacifica State Beach, and the county is one of the sponsors, and Lynn Adams, who actually does that, gets a couple thousand people out cleaning up the beaches through the whole coast. So, in any case, Be Keeping It Clean event is obviously April 19th, and the program's goals are to promote good health and safety of our school children, promote collaborative communities in our county, learn about conserving natural resources, reduce litter in our neighborhoods, promote healthy and sustainable environment for all of our citizens. And over 40 San Mateo County schools have chosen to participate, and each school will have an environmental information center staffed with volunteers, teams of volunteer students, parents, community leaders, and elected officials, and they'll walk to school. Good exercise. In fact, I think we're going to be doing a walk after today's board meeting. We'll probably need that. And litter and recycling collection receptacles. It is a great community activity. There's a number of key staff people who I'm just going to introduce. Dana Lujan, who's from the San Mateo County Office of Education. She's the program coordinator. Lillian Clark, San Mateo County Recycle Works. Gerald Schwartz, also from San Mateo County Recycle Works. Raymond Wong from San Mateo County's Environmental Health. And the entire Recycle Works team is here as well. So here is Joe Lomariano from San Mateo County's Waste Management and Environmental Services Manager.
Thank you so much, President Horsley. Supervisors, Mr. Malpe, Mr. Holland, Mr. Byers. I am privileged to work with Deputy Director Peggy Jensen, Director Jim Porter of the Public Works and Parks Department, and Deputy Director Ann Stillman. I am privileged to also work with a great team of folks in the Recycle Works group, and our mission is wholly dedicated to preserving the environmental resources that our planet offers us. And I do want to wish you a happy Almost Earth Day. Earth Day is going to be, as it always is, April 22nd. It was first founded in 1970 when there was quite a movement afoot that there needed to be special celebration and resources put together to educate the general public, and it's been great. This year, the Recycle Works team in San Mateo County is working closely with a number of groups, including the San Mateo Office of Education, the Safe Routes to Schools program, the county's Environmental Health Countywide Stormwater Pollution Prevention Program, the cities that are involved, and the trash and recycling haulers that are involved to put together a community-based program called Be Seen, Keeping It Clean. And this year, Be Seen, Keeping It Clean is an event that will occur at over 40 schools in our county around the Earth Day week. It's a collaborative effort that involves the kids themselves, the parents, the community leaders, and elected officials and folks on the campuses are going to get together for an event at each of those 40 sites that will involve, it'll be part outreach and education, part litter cleanup and recycling of the materials. And of course, it's going to be all community bonding. It's a great event, and we're really excited to partake in it. And the key goals are to establish and reinforce sustainable environmental practices throughout those communities, and of course, to take action. So that's what it's about. And we are so grateful to President Horsley for bringing this proclamation forward for the board's consideration today. So we'd like to have a brief video that will be running in movie theaters that ties in with a general concept. And the purpose of the video is to affect decision-making of the general folks in our community and what they might do to help keep their neighborhoods clean. So thank you very much.
Don't go away, Joe.
It's hard to imagine someone throwing trash and recyclables on the ground when there are cans nearby. Though it happens every day, it doesn't have to.
Hello? Are you serious? Don't throw your trash on the ground. If you want to be seen with me, you have to be seen keeping it clean.
Be seen keeping it clean. Trash and recycling cans are located everywhere. Use the cans. It's that easy.
Did I mention it's cool to be seen keeping it clean? Did I mention that? Okay.
Before you go, I also have a proclamation, but I first have to make a motion to approve the proclamation for Be Seen Keeping It Clean.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Joe?
See, you've got a new thing now. Let's see.
It's cool because you get the flag and the seal.
Yeah. See, they're doing it wrong. Don't do it. Not going to be seen.
This time, I'm going to take item 34 out of order. I don't think it should take a lot of time. So, Supervisor Pine, did you want to?
Yes, thank you, President Horsley. I just wanted to take a moment on item 34, which concerns the new contract for telephone services for our inmates, to make a couple of points and offer a suggestion. And for the benefit of the audience, San Mateo County's jail, like all jails in the state, charges inmates to make phone calls, and the outside firm has to recover its costs, but in addition, a substantial commission goes to the county to pay for programming. So the monies that we generate from the phone go right into programming to help the inmate population. And it's a substantial amount of money. It's about $1 million that is charged to the inmates, and about $800,000 or so comes back to us that we then invest in programming. So one concern I had was, are the call rates getting too high? Because under the new contract, we're increasing the commission rate. But it turns out, and again, I think it's important for this to be in the public record, that the rates are not increasing, that the new provider is taking a much thinner profit margin. If the rates were increasing, I think it would have warranted a little more discussion, but that's not the case. So I think that's, I appreciate the sheriff making that a priority. And then in terms of my suggestion, and Sheriff Monks may want to comment, this issue is getting a lot of attention at the federal level. The FCC has started a rulemaking process to look at this issue across the country, because the Federal Communication Act requires that there be just and reasonable rates for these sort of calls. So there's going to be an inquiry, what's a just and reasonable rate? And one of the things that the FCC is taking a hard look at are these so-called site commissions. The FCC notes that these site commissions are, as in our case, by far the highest proportion of the cost, and they really are the cost driver. And they can have the situation by which it kind of flips competitive bidding on itself, in that, the higher the bid, higher the commission. And so the FCC is going to look at this. So I guess my only suggestion to Sheriff Monks would be, if in any event this commission is lowered, or any change comes from the FCC, or if the commission specifically is lowered, we want to make sure that the cost, our cost to our inmates would lower, as opposed to the profit increasing for the vendor. So again, my only suggestion is to keep a close eye on this FCC development and make sure the contract allows us to make the appropriate change at such time that the FCC kind of figures this out. But otherwise, I'm supportive of the contract. Again,
yeah, no, that's well put, and we are always concerned about the affordability of the calls, and we certainly, on a statewide level, California State Sheriffs, we're monitoring the FCC's actions, and will certainly comply with any changes that they make. It's always a balance between the cost of the cost of the inmates and their families versus the critical programming that is provided by the Inmate Welfare Fund, which is the #1 supporter for the Service League of San Mateo County, our Choices program, Project READ, and supplemental mental health treatment that we provide our inmates. So, but that's, I think you captured the issue well, and we will monitor any changes that occur and make sure that we comply with them.
Yeah, and if you could just check with council that we have the flexibility to kind of do things, revise the contract, if required.
Yeah, and just to respond to that concern, the contract does contain a provision which allows the county to terminate the contract without cause on a fairly short notice period. So if needed, we could terminate the contract and renegotiate.
Okay, with that, I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. And I do know that the sheriff does 100% of all those money go back into services for the inmates. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. So the next item is item number 4, and it's a public hearing to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's approval of a non-conforming use permit and off-street parking exception, etc. Mr. Eggemeyer?
Good morning, President Horsley, Supervisors, Mr. Maltby, Mr. Holland, Mr. Byers. My name is Jim Eggemeyer, and I am the Community Development Director for the Planning and Building Department. For your consideration this morning is an appeal relative to a non-conforming use permit and off-street parking exception for a new second floor and a first floor addition / remodel on a non-conforming size parcel.
Okay.
I have a number of slides to share with you this morning, including excuse me, some photos in the vicinity, some site plans, elevations, as well as a few alternatives that I'd like to share with you and discuss as well. So, the specific parcel is located in the West Menlo Park location, and shown here is Alpine Road in the diagonal with a small little yellow indicator as where the parcel is. A little bit enlarged here. It is on Perry Avenue. Second parcel in. Here's an isometric view indicating the parcel in a red outline. This is the existing structure for Perry, single story, about 990 square feet. Just behind those mailboxes, you can start to see the existing one-car garage. Another view, an existing oak tree in the road right-of-way. That front facade is only 1 foot from the property line in the front. This is the corner parcel, 2-story structure, also required a use permit because of its non-conforming size, processed back in 2000. Another view of that, 2-car garage structure over that. This is approximately, I think, a 3,600 square foot parcel. And then moving towards the west, at 6 Perry, we have a 2-story structure, existing single-family home, has a detached garage at the back on the right-hand side. And then here's a view looking west. You can see 2 Perry just on the right side, and then the structure near the oak tree, and then 6 Perry just beyond is the second story above that. On the left-hand side, we have a couple of single-family homes also across the street that are roughly, I'm not sure of the square footage, but they are one story in size. And then looking back east, you see the oak tree in front of the subject parcel. So let's take a look around at the existing conditions. This parcel is about 3,125 square feet. The existing structure, as you can see, 1 foot from the front property line. And then located on the right is a single-car garage with a 4-foot setback on that particular side. And then behind the garage, you can also see that the existing condition is a non-conforming structure. It's 19 feet and a few inches. And then on the left-hand side, it is conforming. The structure is 5 feet from the property line. And if you just take a look at the little dashed lines, those dashed lines indicate the required setbacks on this particular parcel. 20 feet in the front, 5 on the sides, 20 feet in the rear. This is the existing floor plan. So what we have here is 2 bedrooms up in front towards the street, living room, kitchen area, bath, and then the garage to the far right. Single car garage. Now we're going to take a look at the proposed encroachments as they relate to the conditions on this particular site. So we've indicated the setback requirements in the red lines, 20 feet, 5 on the sides, and 20 in the rear. In the hash or cross-hatched area towards the left rear is where the applicant would fill in for a kitchen area. I'll show you that in a minute. But that would be a conforming area. And then also the garage would be expanding on the right-hand side so that it too has conforms up to the line. And then the entry would be expanded, but also would then encroach into the required setbacks. And then, as you can see, all in the colored ochre color. In the front is the second story, as well as in the rear. We also have some additional encroachments as part of the proposed project. So here's the approved main floor plan. Essentially a living room area off to the left where the bedrooms were is converted to a living room, kitchen and dining area at the back, laundry area and a bath for the lower floor, and a single car garage. The upper floor consists of 4 bedrooms, master bath there, as well as 3 other bathrooms. So this is a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house that's being proposed. The upper story would be 5 feet from the front setback. As I mentioned, or I'd shown you in the ochre colored site plan, there were some encroachments in the rear, as well as there is a 1-foot encroachment on the right-hand side. This is what was approved by the Planning Commission in November. It was on appeal to them, but it was, the appeal was denied, and the vote was 3-1 in favor of the proposed plan that I'm showing you right now. So I'm going to take a look at the elevations. In the red is the indicated daylight plane requirements. In the ochre is the encroachments relative to the setback requirements. So as you can see up in the upper left, this is a building elevation, and the upper story, 5 feet from the side, or the front property line. And then there should be a little bit of the coloring on the upper right side too, as you can see, because it encroaches a couple feet. And then the upper right, you can see that's the front facade, and it meets the requirements relative to the sides. And then the rear is the lower left. See a slight little encroachment there relative to the left part, because they're following the 4-foot setback and continuing that straight up. And then on the lower right-hand side, we have the other building elevation. Once again, the front is to the right, And you can see the encroachments of the existing first floor and the proposed second floor. Okay, now I'm going to spend a little bit of time relative to what we've included in the staff report for some alternatives. So this is a de novo hearing. It's in an appeal, so we have an opportunity to discuss some alternatives today. One of those was submitted by the appellant, and the staff had number 2, and then also the applicant has submitted an alternative for consideration. But before I get into that, I'd like to first share with you kind of the basic information here. The zoning requirements for lot coverage is 50%. Basically, anything over 18 inches in height is part of lot coverage. So we really only have to look at just the site plans that I had shown you. So the existing 990 square foot single family home covers 32% of that small 3,100 square foot parcel. There's also a floor area maximum relative to 5,000 square feet or less, and it's 2,800 square feet. So the zoning requirement allows floor area of 2,800 square feet. What I've done here is shown a ratio relative to the floor area and the size of the parcel. And that's because one of the findings necessary for the use permit is proportionality. It's what was used for the adjoining parcel at 2 Perry. Just as kind of a background information on that. So let's move over one column to the proposed project. This is the one that was approved by the Planning Commission. The lot coverage increases because of those encroachments on the first floor and those on the second floor to 45.5%, still conforming with the zoning requirements. Floor area increases 2,727 square feet, roughly about 1,400 on the lower floor, 1,300 on the upper floor. The 27 square feet is in compliance with the zoning requirement of 2,800 square feet. But apply that to the size of the parcel, floor area to the 3,125, and you get 87% as a floor area ratio. Now let's look at alternative 1. As described in the staff report, alternative 1 by the appellant is essentially looking at the building setbacks for the second floor. Add those up, and roughly you get about a 40% lot coverage for that proposal, about 2,277 square feet, because you're taking the second story encroachments and you're moving them back to the 20-foot required front and rear, and then a little, they, as part of their proposal, thought that the 4-foot on the side was okay on the right-hand side above the garage. So applying the floor area 2,277 to the 3,125 is 73% a ratio. Moving to staff's alternative, we have merely described the opportunities here to allow encroachments, but use the proportionality test. So therefore, the size of the parcel, 3,125, as a ratio to the 5,000 required. Do the math and you end up with about 1,750 square feet. That would then represent, to the size of the parcel, 56%. The applicant has also made a proposal that essentially moves the second story back. Their proposal that was approved by the Planning Commission was for a 5-foot setback. They've increased that to a 10-foot, therefore reducing the square footage on the second floor. Their lot coverage, 45.5%, square footage reduced by a couple hundred square feet, so therefore it's 2,500. The floor area ratio there, 80%. Now I'm going to show you a couple pictures relative to alternative 1 and 3. So in alternative 1, by the appellant, what we're looking at is the area contained in the daylight plane in the upper left. So that's just the second story back there. We just took some liberties and shedded the roof going back to that, as you can see in the upper right-hand side. So there's no floor area above the existing first floor. Fairly straightforward in that concept. Now going to alternative number 3 by the applicant. Essentially, if you look in the upper left, there's a dashed line where they had proposed the 5-foot setback. They've increased that to 10 feet. So you can see they've reduced the size of room, basically reoriented the upper floor some. I'll share a floor plan with you in just a minute. So here's the site plan, and highlighted in that yellow color is the reduced second story from 5-foot setback to a 10-foot setback. All the other encroachments would remain. The one on the right-hand side, the applicant is proposing to conform to the required 5-foot setback for the second story. So you can see here's a main floor plan, essentially the same in its layout as I've previously shown and approved by the Planning Commission. Single car garage. The upper floor basically shifted back so that the study is removed, the rooms are reduced in size a little bit, and then you have a second story on the right-hand side that's also conforming. So that essentially is my presentation this morning. I'm available for any questions. I'd like to share with you here our recommendation, which is relative to the Planning Commission's decision on approving the project, which is to deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission's decision for approving the non-conforming use permit and the off-street parking exception. So I'll elaborate a little bit on the off-street parking exception. New structures, remodels, when we count the number of bedrooms associated with that remodel or new structure. If it's 2 or more, 2 covered parking spaces are required. The applicant has only requested the continuation of 1 existing covered space, and the Planning Commission made the necessary findings, believing that the 1-car garage was sufficient and that there was off-street parking in front of the garage as the driveway approach to that garage. So they felt that it was okay for this particular size parcel and that those findings could be made for that as well. So at this time, available for any questions?
Questions?
I just have one to start off with, because I would like to hear, the applicant. I'd also like to hear all the comments. But, when I look at some things like the floor area ratio, how often do we allow for homes to have in the 80 percentile rate for floor area ratio?
Hard for me to remember.
In other words, not often.
Not often. And the reason is that there's very few non-conforming parcels. They do exist. And I think that's why we have in our zoning regulations a nonconformities chapter for nonconforming structures, nonconforming parcels, because these unique situations do arise. And but it's not very often that we do have something in that that size.
I guess the other thing that sort of strikes me, it seems unusual if you would allow that much floor area ratio then to limit the parking. I mean, you're adding 4 bedrooms, 4 baths to a home, and yet allowing for just the 1 parking space. I mean, I find that, just in the years I've done any kind of planning work, those two together send off a real red signal to me that that's really out of context for what should be happening in the neighborhood. But,
Yeah,
I would like to hear a little bit more about the plans and have a little more discussion as to whether there's a 4th alternative that could come about that would be a little more reasonable for within the the neighborhood. But I will reserve judgment until I do get a chance to hear from everybody. But I do get a little concerned. In all the years I've done planning as a profession or had sat on the planning commission here and also on the board and the council, I find this to be almost to the extreme of anything I've ever seen. So that's why I was curious, do we do it very often here? I don't recall anything to that size and magnitude with that kind of parking. So
Any other questions? Supervisor Pine?
Just one question. On the 3 alternatives, Mr. Eggemeyer.
Yes.
We've received a number of letters from some of the opponents of the project citing their preference for alternative 2. But I just want to confirm that the appellants, I guess the actual parties that filed the appeal, are suggesting alternative 1 as their preferred.
That's correct.
Okay.
But there's been some supplemental letters, I believe, that you've received relative to supporting the alternative number 2 by staff.
Okay, well, it just, when it says a pound, it confuses me a bit, but we'll hear from them.
That's correct. Just to clarify, under alternative number 2, we believe that there could be some opportunities to explore with some kind of minor encroachments, but we really didn't want to get into the design. We understand, there's a family that is living in this particular house, and we'll let them kind of design those kinds of encroachments where they may be and kind of the architecture associated with that. But we really didn't want to get into that design. We wanted to really let the alternative 2 be driven by the maximum floor area of 1750.
I see. Thank you.
No other questions? In that case, I'm gonna have Mr. J.R. Rodin as the owner's representative, and I'll call the owners after that. Do you want to speak first, J.R.?
Thank you. Good morning, members of the board. I'm J.R. Rodin. I'm representing the applicants, Michael and Christine Valentine. Good morning to supervisors and staff. It's good to see you back, Mr. Holland. I, for the moment, would like to defer to Christina Valentine. She'd like to introduce the family, her team, or their team, and also make note of the fact that we do have one speaker that needs to depart at 10:15 who supports the application. So I'd like the chairman or the board president to bear that in mind, and if we can take that out of sequence.
Be going here at 10:15. So
I suspect we will.
So in that case, Christine Valentine. Thank you. And followed by Michael Valentine. And we will give you more time than 2 minutes. If you need 5 minutes,
Thank you.
it's fine.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Christina Valentine and Mike Valentine here to speak on behalf of the proposed project at 4 Perry Avenue. We would like to thank the zoning hearing officer and the planning commission for their support of our proposed build at 4 Perry. We purchased this home in 2010 for many reasons. We were moving from the East Bay so that my husband Mike could work in the area where he was building his company. The 2-hour commute home to Walnut Creek had gotten too difficult, so we made the decision to move to the peninsula. We wanted to get settled before our oldest child started kindergarten because we didn't want to uproot him once he started school. As a former 8th grade teacher and now a teacher educator for St. Mary's College, I wanted to make sure that we purchased a home in a great school district. We fell in love with Menlo Park for its central location on the peninsula and the Las Lomitas schools. However, it was difficult to find a home in 2010 within the Las Lomitas school district that was within our budget. As a couple in our early 30s, trying to get started and own a home in Menlo Park, options are limited when trying to find something under $1 million. Our realtor showed us the University Heights neighborhood and the house at 4 Perry. We knew that with Mike's construction skills, we could eventually save enough money to add on to the structure and make it a dream family home. If we could have afforded a larger lot in this neighborhood and built on it, I can assure you we would have. However, these sacrifices were made to enable Mike to have extra time at home without the long commute, which has been priceless. Before purchasing this property, we contacted the San Mateo Planning and Building Department to discuss possible building allowances at 4 Perry Avenue. With this in mind, we worked with our architect for over a year to design a family home that would comply with the applicable zoning regulations while contending with the constraints of our legal non-conforming lot created in the mid-1940s. We are not speculators, nor are we trying to flip this home for a profit. Mike and I, along with our 2 young children, have lived in this cottage for over 2.5 years at this point, and are now trying to create a home of sufficient size to raise our family and enjoy for a very long time. Looking around our neighborhood, it is evident that allowances have been made to accommodate the changing neighborhood and new structures that have been built. We are asking for design features that have been granted to others within our immediate neighborhood in the past, such as a 1-car garage and an allowance on 2 setbacks. Despite what some of the opposition is saying, we designed this house abiding by the San Mateo County zoning provisions to build a family home that we could afford without any impact on the neighborhood. We would like you to know that we truly do love this neighborhood. We have been involved in all of the family activities such as Friday frolics, the Halloween parade, and 4th of July festivities. We are always out and about talking to neighbors, walking to the bus stop,
going on bike or scooter rides with the kids, or most frequently shooting hoops on our neighborhood basketball hoop on 4 Perry. We have made wonderful friends in this neighborhood and hope to be able to stay here and watch our children grow up together. We have volunteered our time and resources to the Las Lomitas School and various volunteer organizations here in the community. We truly believe that we are trying to build a structure that will add character and value to the neighborhood. At this point, both parties need to make compromises, and we have offered. We hope you will consider the compromises we have offered today so that we can build our dream family home. Thank you for your time and consideration of our proposed build. Mr. J.R. Rodin has already been introduced, but if he's going to come up here and help me offer a little bit more information via PowerPoint. We also have Mr. Daryl Harris, our architect, along with my husband, Mike Valentine, that are here to help answer any general questions regarding plans, zoning, or architectural design. Thank you.
Christine, I think we...
Do you need 5 minutes as well, Mr. Rodin?
I hope not.
Okay.
I would imagine you would as well. I can't follow some of the previous acts, so I'll make it very brief. I would like to introduce, for the record, as soon as I can find my reading glasses, a summation of the number of supporters within the neighborhood. And I won't go into each individual, but I would like to present that to the board clerk. We have many people in the neighborhood who have supported the application, and we have speakers today as well. So if we can go ahead and move to the PowerPoint, that would be great. Again, we begin for Perry Avenue, and let's see where we... Just move over. Okay, again, we have, there we go. What we've done is bullet pointed the compromises that we have made in relation to the Planning Commission's approval of 2,727 square feet of house. We realized in the process of discussing the issue with the neighbors as well as members of the Board of Supervisors that we did need to do something reasonable architecturally without completely torturing the design of the house and still rendering it physically feasible to do. So these points highlight what we have done in terms of not only complying with the design, but also some other neighborhood issues raised with regard to landscaping, tree preservation, and 10 feet. Okay, property. Okay, we've already been through that, so I'm going to skip through this very quickly. The first graph shows the area shaded in green where we have moved the area, removed the portion of the second story 10-foot encroachment and reduced that to 5. And then we've also reduced the second story daylight plane encroachment of 4 feet, moved that to 5 feet as Mr. Eggemeyer indicated. So we are compliant there. Without, again, torturing the design, it creates a modulation of the architecture from the roof line and also the facade of the building. We do have our architect who can address particular design questions if the board cares to get it that level of design. Thank you. This is an example of the area shaded in green where we have removed the previous encroachments, both front and right side. This would be the right side elevation if we were looking from the corner of Ivy Avenue. The area shaded in green shows where we have, again, articulated the face of the building to remove some of the mass and bulk of that, and also along the right side where we've punched that in above the garage. If we were looking at the rear elevation in the area shaded in green and along the roof line, that is the area which would be directly opposite the garage. And again, if we were looking east along Perry Avenue from the neighbor's front yard or along Perry Avenue, that would also illustrate the area that's been set back to create much greater relief. As far as the lot coverage goes, I know that Supervisor Tissier had raised that question, and I understand where you're going with that, because I don't recall whether you were on the Planning Commission when we looked at that ordinance or not, but at the time, Paul Koenig, the Director of Community Development, and his staff brought forward recommendation that 2,800 square feet would be a reasonable ceiling in order to allow people to work at or under to develop these very unique legal non-conforming lots that were created well in advance of the county subdivision ordinance in 1946, and then future iterations that went to parcel mapping requirements and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, we do have a number of properties in the area that were created prior to that time. They were done by deed, and we have to do something with them that is reasonable to allow redevelopment. What we have here is a cottage that's about 60 years old, and to allow that to be redeveloped in today's age for a family home, the 2,800 square feet, I think, was developed as the rule. And I don't know what rationale went into that, but that's what the cumulative rationale was at the time it was adopted, reviewed by the commission, and then adopted into ordinance by the board. So when applicants come before this agency, and designers and property owners need to move forward and come up with plans to submit, those are the tests that we have to face. And I think creating a different standard at the end of the process makes it very, very difficult for people to hit the bullseye. And so what we've tried to do in this compromise is reach a satisfactory medium where the architecture isn't tortured. It creates a home that the neighbors won't find, hopefully, intrusive, and yet gives the Valentines utility that they need. I will gloss through the tree preservation program. What we did, I know there were a number of people who complained about, or were concerned about the health of the tree. Real quickly, they've hired an S.P. McClanahan company. The arborist has been engaged in ongoing consultation. He reviewed the landscape plan we submitted and made recommendations to modify the plantings and the irrigation schedule. So we will be able to preserve that tree. And then as far as the off-street parking consideration, we also have submitted, and it's in the plans that I believe went to the board in the staff report. We've created 2 on-site uncovered parking spaces in front of the garage using decorative pavers, so that it will not only enhance the parking architecturally to address Supervisor Tissier's concern. We'll have 3 on-site spaces with decorative pavers. It will also allow for reduce impervious surfacing and enhance runoff as well. So it'll be a very attractive parking facility. Okay, and that is essentially the landscape plan. As far as soliciting support goes, we have gone out, and I can let Mr. Valentine speak to that if he'd like, but when they drew up their plans, they approached every neighbor within a 350-foot radius, and they presented the plan, and part of the information we just submitted, which accompanies previous petition information, showed that people had reviewed and did not oppose the plan. We have since solicited many more supporters since the Planning Commission approval and the appeal on that. So one of the things that we did, and which generated more recent support, was the fact that there has been misinformation about the bulk, the mass, and particularly claims that the floor area ratio was non-compliant with county standards. Your own staff has told you, although albeit high, it complies. And I think that's a tough test to overlook. As far as distributing the correct information, we've again gone about sharing our plans and our revisions, and this sheet shows a number of people that made comments with regard to their thoughts on the project that favor denial of the appeal. And in the summary, I would like Christina to take over. Thank you.
Well, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go back one slide. So we became aware of the fact that there was misinformation being distributed about the square footage to over 60 homes in our neighborhood. At which point, we put together a letter where we explained our situation, we explained all of the correct square footage, and then we also discussed the compromises that we had offered to the appellants. We sent that email to the neighbors that we know in the neighborhood, and I would just like to share some of the responses that have been sent and is on public record, just because I feel that it's pertinent. It says, I live 2 doors down from the Valentines. I support the current plans for this remodel and believe the Valentines have been fully transparent during this process and have made numerous concessions to appease the appellants. I believe it is also worth noting that some of the appellants do not have functioning garages and are already creating safety issues on this very narrow, non-conforming street. Another quote, I had no intention of supporting or opposing this project since I live several blocks away, but my front porch was littered with propaganda that misrepresented the Valentines project. With all due respect to the opponents, this aggressive, ongoing appeal by the Friends of Perry Lane is now borderline harassment to the Valentine family and causing unnecessary friction within the neighborhood. I hope that when this issue is resolved, that the Friends of Perry Lane put as much effort into mending the relationship with the Valentines as they have exerted on their ongoing appeals. Another quote, I have heard from the others that there was a lot of misinformation being circulated, and so I just opted out. My issue with the first design was the lack of setback. So yes, the 10-foot concession makes me feel better about the overall aesthetic. And finally, I was compelled to write this letter to help ensure it was clear that the voices from who you've heard do not speak for the entire neighborhood. In fact, many of us consider information they have distributed misleading and the tactics they have employed inappropriately aggressive. In summary, I wanted to share those excerpts because, we have really tried to focus on support within the 350 feet. And, we've really tried to preserve neighbor relations. And we worked closely with our architect to design a home that would fit the scale and character of the neighborhood. And we really do want to stay in this neighborhood and raise our family here. As we mentioned previously, we are not speculators. We are not here to flip this home. I've lived, with Mike and my 2 children for 3 years in this home. We have offered 2 significant and reasonable design compromises in order to move forward. We hope that we can come to a compromise today so that we can all move forward from this situation. Mike is a small business owner here in Menlo Park, and as I mentioned, I'm in education, and we're very involved in the community, and this is where we want to stay. We wish to remodel the house in accordance with a compromise design to remain in the same school district because, as you all know, with home prices the way they are right now, if we had to sell this house as is, I don't think we would be able to stay in the Las Lomitas School District. And we encourage you, as the Board of Supervisors, to deny the appeal by adopting our compromise design and making the required findings a fact for approval of the conditional use permit and the off-street parking exception. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Did you want to say something, Mike?
Not at this time. She's a much better speaker than I am.
I suspect that's true.
Thank you.
I've given you a lot of time, JR.
Thank you.
I'm going to give the applicants a similar, or the appellants, that is, some additional time as well.
Thank you.
And then we'll have some other speakers as well.
Okay. If I may, we do have one speaker, a gentleman named Ryan Floyd, who needs to leave very shortly. So I just wanted
He needs to leave shortly?
He does.
Okay, well, I'll take him first then.
Thank you.
Ryan Floyd.
Good morning. Thanks for taking me out of order. My name is Ryan Floyd. I live at 339 Vine Street, about a block away from the Valentines. I'm here in support of the Valentines for a couple of reasons. First, I'm sympathetic with all of the neighbors. It's a complicated issue, and I understand it's a very big house on a small lot. But in our neighborhood, this is characteristic of the neighborhood. There's many non-conforming lots, and having gone through the rebuild process myself in 2007, I can assure you that the planning department was very rigorous with respect to the design considerations of my own home, and following the rules was very important. I feel like the Valentines have followed the rules. They've been through several appeal processes. They've offered some concessions. And it seems like if you follow the rules, you should be allowed to build your house. They've made a significant investment in our neighborhood. I guess the second point I'd like to make with respect to the variances and the off-street parking, a number of houses in our neighborhood have a single-car garage, including my own, which is a 3,700 square foot home on an 8,000 square foot parcel. The reason for that is because the parcel is very narrow. So there's been many allowances made in our neighborhood. My driveway provides for 2 parking spaces. We don't park on the street. But I'm very appreciative that a variance was allowed, because it allowed, from an architectural standpoint, I think, a much better home. So anyway, with that, I very much support the Valentine's design. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take the appellants now. The first one is Daryl Camarillo, and we will give you additional time, 3 minutes.
I only need 2.
You only need 2?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
This is. You have it. Okay. I don't have it. Thank you. Good morning, President Horsley and members of the board. I am Daryl Camarillo, and I live directly across the street from the proposed development. I'm speaking on behalf of the 10 appellants, all of whom live in the neighborhood of 4 Perry Avenue. After I speak, 4 others will speak, and we would like to reserve time to make an additional statement after the applicant speaks. The neighbors and I are a friendly, collaborative group who have embraced change and growth in our neighborhood. When we were first shown the applicant's plans, we didn't understand them fully until we looked at the county codes. When we began to understand what was being proposed, we were astounded and deeply concerned. While we support the applicant's rights to remodel this home, the house that is proposed is simply too big and out of proportion for the substandard lot that it sits on. At 2,727 square feet, such a large house has an FAR, or proportionality percentage, of 0.87, which is too big for our narrow country lane. All other houses on the block, including the one on the other non-conforming lot, have a proportionality percentage of 0.56 as a point of comparison. Most out of scale is the proposal to extend the second floor on the front setback. The most important feature in any neighborhood is the front setback, and to allow any second-story intrusion on in the front setback would result in an imposing structure that blocks light and view from surrounding properties and looms over the street and Heritage Oak in front of the house and in the right-of-way. We urge you to consider these points and to take into consideration the size house that will be proportional to this very small, almost half-size lot. We support staff's alternative 2, which addresses our concerns and represents a compromise that we can live with. I'd like to now introduce another appellant, Gary Marandino.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Gary Marandino.
Could you give Gary 3 minutes?
I will.
If you need it.
I'm less than that. I've lived at 261 Vine Street for 29 years. I, like many of my neighbors, am very invested in our neighborhood, as many of you are in yours, I'm sure. I've witnessed significant growth on all the neighboring streets, and this is the first time I've ever been moved to oppose any development in the University Heights neighborhood. I'd like to emphasize what Daryl said a minute ago about our neighborhood. We tend to be a cooperative group that focuses on the greater good of the neighborhood, which benefits us all. In the past, with people like Rich Gordon's help, we successfully negotiated solutions with the Menlo Park School District. with Stanford University and the county to address issues around parking, cut-through traffic, and safety in the neighborhood. As a result, our neighborhood is a safer and less congested neighborhood. Others have worked with the developer of the adjacent non-conforming lot at 2 Perry to find a solution that was in proportion to that lot. As was mentioned, I think JR mentioned this, that Mr. Valentine did review plans with most of us within a 350 yard or foot radius, and I think that it's very complicated and hard to understand the setbacks, and I think there was some confusion, and once we got into the process, we started looking at it, we understood it a little bit better, and that's why we're appealing this. So regarding 4 Perry Avenue, the most recent compromise the applicant submitted just a few weeks ago represents very little change. It merely reduces the original plans by around 200 square feet, which does not begin to make it proportional to the lot. Along with all of the appellants, I support county staff alternative 2 that compares the applicant's non-conforming lot to the other non-conforming lot, which is right next door at 2 Perry. We feel the county has proposed a very reasonable solution, which is consistent with their precedent it set in 2010. It's difficult for many people to attend meetings like this during the week, and so we appreciate the people that did come. I know that we do have 26 or so letters on file with the supervisors supporting our appeal, but I would like to ask all those present who support our position and agree that the county proposed alternative number 2 is the best solution to please stand up. Thank you. Next, we'd like to have Patricia McBriar speak on our behalf.
Actually, I'm going to go next. Good morning, President Horsley and members of the board. I am Sandy Sloan. I live around the corner from Perry Lane on Stanford Avenue, and I care passionately about the fairness of the planning process. I have been a land use attorney for 33 years, working with both private clients and as a contract city attorney. It is basic land use law that a use permit can be issued only if the required findings can be made. The Topanga case decided by the California Supreme Court makes it clear that findings cannot be based merely on what applicants want in a dream house or pulled out of thin air. The findings must be based on evidence, and the evidence must be based on facts. With regard to 4 Perry Lane, 4 out of the 5 necessary findings required by the county code cannot be made, and I set those out in a letter I sent to you. I want to emphasize the first finding. The proposed remodel is not proportional to this lot. There is no misinformation. The staff report tells you what the proposed square footage of the house is. The lot is only 63% of a standard lot, and a proportional house would be 63% of what is normally allowed. This is staff alternative 2. The Planning Commission unfortunately looked at other houses in the neighborhood on conforming lots and erroneously applied the proportionality standard. And I want to address Supervisor Pine's question. The appellants first proposed alternative 1, but our calculations led to a house of 1,800 square feet, not what was shown by Mr. Eggemeyer. But having reviewed the staff report for 2 Perry Lane, which the county staff prepared only a few years ago, and doing the math, we decided that the most reasonable approach was to apply the standard that applies to 2 Perry Lane and support alternative 2. Alternative 2 is an option where the findings can be made, an option that is a good compromise, and an option the neighbors support. I might point out that the applicant's compromises, such as reducing the square footage by only 170 square feet, adding pavers to the driveway, and improving landscaping, and it makes me think of changing the icing on a cake, but the cake is still too big. We urge you to approve alternative 2, and now I'd like Patricia McBriar to speak.
Same 3.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. I am Patricia McBriar, a neighbor. I live at 252 Stanford Avenue.
I am also an architect of 20 years focused on housing of all types, including affordable and special needs housing, as well as single-family houses. I have designed 2 remodels in the neighborhood, one of which was a non-conforming structure. I am very familiar with the county zoning ordinance. While we appreciate that the applicants have put forth a revised proposal, their new plan still falls far short of meeting the findings required to grant a use permit, particularly in regard to proportion and setbacks. It's also important to note that the surface parking spaces that are shown on their landscape plan are significantly smaller than the standard and do not accommodate a standard-sized car. Let me put this into context for you with this chart. A standard parcel of 5,000 square feet is allowed a total floor area of 2,800 square feet, resulting in a proportionality of 0.56. If 4 Perry were remodeled without a use permit, it would be allowed a total floor area of approximately just under 1,500 square feet with a proportionality of 0.4. If we look to the neighboring non-conforming lot, 2 Perry Avenue, it was issued a use permit where the findings could be met. There, the 73% of standard lot was allowed a 73% of standard floor area, maintaining the 0.56 proportionality. This is the rationality that should be applied to 4 Perry Avenue as well, and which the staff has done in proposing their Alternative 2. Alternative 2 says that a 63% of standard lot should have a 63% of standard house, maintaining the 0.56 proportionality of house to lot. The 4 Perry Avenue applicant's original proposal was for a 97% of standard house on a 63% of standard lot, resulting in a proportionality of 0.87. Their revised proposal reduces this proportionality to 0.82, still significantly larger than the standard of 0.56. With such a minor reduction in bulk, the differences between the 2 applicants' proposals would be virtually unnoticeable if built. The granting of a use permit based on Alternative 2 still allows for exceptions to the standards that benefit the applicant. But the exceptions are reasonable, and the 5 findings are justifiable. We strongly support staff Alternative 2, provided no new construction occur in the front or rear setbacks. Next, Lenny Roberts will speak on our behalf.
Just, I have to say what rather than have a whole bunch of people, I allowed the appellants each 3 minutes, and there's about essentially 5 of them.
This is a group presentation of 5 people. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'm speaking for Committee for Green Foothills and also in support of the alternative number 2. As you know, it is unusual for Committee for Green Foothills to be involved in issues regarding a remodel of a single-family residence in an urban Bayside neighborhood. But I am very concerned about this particular proposal. Why should anybody care? In this case, it would be a bad precedent for the county to misuse the use permit process to so substantially circumvent the long-established zoning standards for this neighborhood. The particular purposes of our county zoning regulations, which are in Section 6101, include to guide, control, and regulate the future growth and development of the county, to protect the character and the social and economic stability of residential areas, and to help prevent overcrowding of the land. These fundamental purposes are all applicable here. As you know, the granting of a use permit is a discretionary action for you and is not an entitlement for an applicant to maximize nonconformance with the zoning regulations. In this world, we can't always have everything we would like. I agree with Sandy Sloan's considered conclusion that 4 of the required findings cannot be made. The proposed remodel is not proportional to its lot, even as modified by the applicant's recent revisions. It is not as nearly in conformance with the regulations as possible. Approval of the building would in fact be injurious to the neighborhood, blocking light and views and looming over the street. No other house has a proportionality or floor area ratio over 0.56, and no other house in the neighborhood extends into the front setback. This indeed would be granting of a special privilege. By the way, many coast-side parcels are substandard, and you do get applications for use permits for their development regularly. and on remodels as well. So in conclusion, I wanted to thank staff and particularly Mike Schaller for his clear description of Alternative 2 on page 11 of your staff report, which you don't have numbers on, but it is page 11, and urge you to approve this alternative. Thank you, and if we need to, we'd like to reserve time at the end, but I think that we've already heard the applicant, so thank you.
Okay, and it's Sandy Sloan? Oh, okay. In that case, I do have a few other speakers, and those will be for 2 minutes. This one, first one is Serene Sadati, followed by Mark Greenbaum.
Hi, my name is Shireen Sadati, and I live a few blocks over. I had no intention of getting involved in this because I live at 123 Stanford. However, my porch has been littered with lots of propaganda, lots of stuff that was inaccurate. So I just want to clarify that I am in support of the Valentine's remodel. I think it will add value to the neighborhood. And if you just walk down the street and saw, there's only one other cottage left on that street. The whole street has been redeveloped. And as far as the parking, you keep asking about parking. We went through the remodeling process ourselves, had the property since 1986, and seen lots of change in the neighborhood, lots of positive change in the neighborhood, adding value to the neighborhood. But people, even when they build a 2-car garage, even though they're not all 2-car garages, I can list several neighbors that have 1-car garage, they don't park in the garage. The garage is used for storage. People park on the street. The photographs that you're seeing are daytime. If you were there after 5 o'clock, the whole neighborhood has cars on the street. By the morning, by 7 in the morning, it's all cleared out again. So just so you're very clear, that's what happens in the neighborhood. As far as our neighborhood being congenial and getting along, we do. We have a great neighborhood. We love these neighbors. I like all the neighbors in the neighborhood, even though we're having this friction. I just like it to be over, and I'd like the house to be built and be done with it. Thank you for your time.
Mark Greenbaum, followed by John James.
This may be a tough act to follow. Hi, thank you for the time today. I'm Mark Greenbaum. I live on Perry Avenue, currently at 11 Perry. For about 8 years, I resided at 2 Perry, the home right next to the Valentines that they're proposing. I want to voice my continued support for the Valentines and their efforts to improve this property, which is decades old, to bring it up to modern standards, and I really applaud their efforts to do so thoughtfully and tastefully, and importantly, in careful consideration of all the relevant building codes. I have read all 3 of the very detailed staff reports that made to the Planning Commission. I appreciate how thoughtfully and thoroughly those were prepared. I continue to support their recommendation that this application be approved as standing. I believe it'll functionally and aesthetically improve the neighborhood. Absolutely, I believe it fits in the character of this neighborhood. I guess where I come from is I recognize everyone here has opinions. They have preferences related to this matter. They may even have concerns related to this matter. As important as it is to hear those voices and consider those voices, I think that it's also important to respect the rights of the property owner and that the building codes are consistently applied based on the relevant facts of the matter, not based on what appears to be popular or political at any given moment. So I will hope that this group will continue to usually base those judgments on the facts of the case rather than opinions. I'll also make just a couple comments about 2 Perry, because I know the appellants have mentioned that should be held up as the standard here, recognizing there are only, I believe, 2 non-conforming parcels in the neighborhood. Obviously, that decision was made 13 years ago, and I believe you're going to hear from, after me, I think, the builder on 2 Perry, but recognize that was built by a professional developer who didn't have an intention to stay in the property on a long-term basis, may have made some concessions in a negotiation for the sake of expediency. So we need to keep that in mind in terms of measuring as a precedent. Lastly, understand there's a second 2-story entryway in that home. So if that were actually used as floor area, you'd have a 2,300 square foot home, not 2,000.
And next is John James.
Good morning, President Horsley and members of the board. I'm John James, the former owner and developer of 2 Perry. I will add that The home was built for myself and my wife, not for purposes of development. We were very mindful of when we developed the home that it fit into the context of the neighborhood. You've read my staff letter that I provided to you. I have a lot of experience in real estate. I've been in the business as a realtor and developer for 20 years. And I'm currently a realtor in Palo Alto. So I know the market well and generally in support of development, but this particular one is a little bit different. Staff should recommend a good design for 4 Perry Avenue. The application should limit its massing. We reduced the existing non-conforming portion of our structure on 2 Perry Avenue. We did not increase it. Staff required our application on 2 Perry to be built in full conformance on the setback for the second level of our home. Staff should also look at the parking on the site. 3 parking spaces were proposed for 4 Perry application. We provided 4 parking spaces, 2 in a 2-car garage for our home on 2 Perry, and 2 spaces in front of the home, and 1 street parking space. We built a 3-bedroom home with a 2-car garage at 2 Perry. Additionally, our first floor existing rear structure setback was 3 feet from the rear property line. Staff required us to move it back to 10 feet at the time that we had the approval. I hope that you consider the information, and I thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Okay, no further speakers on that. Mr. Egemeyer? Well, there's one question I had, there's appellant number 1, and that's someplace in the presentation showed that as a 2,277 square foot home. I didn't.
That was our estimation of the square footage based on their verbal description in the appeal. So we basically took what they were describing as an envelope, and that's our estimation, and I think that's been clarified.
Okay. Supervisor Groom?
Mr. Egemeyer, would you explain the use permit process, please?
Sure. In this particular case, we have 2 items that are non-conforming structure and a non-conforming parcel. So non-conforming structures, there's certain kinds of requirements and for additions, remodels. If it's new construction, essentially the structure goes away completely. So you know looking at conformities there, but there's greater requirements for a non-conforming parcel, and that's the case that we have here. Because under the non-conforming structures, there's some rules and regulations, and if you tend to follow those, you don't have to go down through the use permit requirements. There's kind of an escape valve, is what we refer to it, in the non-conforming structures, but it's not codified under non-conforming structures. It's under the exceptions at the very end. So to tell you the truth, the real focus around this particular project is non-conforming parcel. And the reason is because the idea, if you have something, in this case, it's 5,000 square feet is the minimum. And there are certain requirements as you drop below that 30 or the 5,000 square foot minimum size parcel, where you could just propose your structures and conform with the requirements. But as soon as you get below 3,500 square feet size parcel, a use permit's required for anything. Whether or not it's removed and there's nothing there, or in this case, it's an improved parcel. Either way, we're because of the size of the parcel, it drives this towards a use permit, and contained in the non-conforming parcels are those 5 findings that the audience has been talking and directing your attention towards.
And so when the Planning Commission reviewed this, they made a different determination. Can you explain how they followed the use permit process in making that determination?
Yeah, there were a number of speakers. We made our presentation essentially because this was an appeal from a lower level, the zoning hearing officer, a single person. slight little compromises relative to the design modifications required. It was appealed to the Planning Commission. There was discussion among the planning commissioners. One of them was focused on a smaller size parcel, requested a redesign, and there were other planning commissioners who felt that proportionality was okay, and that there was a sense of scale relative to the neighborhood, and felt that they felt comfortable making the findings. So essentially there was some direction towards a redesign, but there wasn't a second on the motion. It failed, therefore then there was a kind of an opposite motion to approve the project.
Any other questions? Supervisors
Slocum? Thank you. I just had a quick question here for perhaps Mr. Byers. In the letter from Margaret Sloan, she quotes that case, Topanga Association for a Senior Community versus the County of Los Angeles, and she spoke about that. I'm wondering if you can just comment on that, because she said she made certain claims. And
as a general proposition, a non-conforming, and this also in part I think answers Supervisor Groom's question. As a general proposition, a non-conforming use permit can only be issued if the board approves findings which are supported by the evidence. Whether the findings are supported by the evidence is really a question of fact for the board, and it is a discretionary call. So the Planning Commission has previously determined that the findings are there, the findings are supported by the evidence on all 5 of those points. Obviously, the appellants disagree with that. So it's up to this board to determine whether it agrees with the Planning Commission in terms of whether the evidence does support the findings.
Thank you. Mr. President, could I just say one other thing?
Yes.
Just a quick comment. I wanted to just share with you the fact that last week I was at Menlo College talking to a group of political science students, and they got interested in this issue, and their Professor Michelson, came this morning. There she is, and some of her students from Menlo College, because they were very, very interested in this issue, and I thought we'd just take a moment and recognize them for coming here and learning about what the county does and local democracy and some of the tensions that exist. So thank you all for coming.
If they have iPhones, we should ask them how they vote. I guess we won't do that. So I guess the first thing is to close the public hearing. A motion.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just my comment is, I just have to say, I think this is completely out of proportion to the lot. And I really have a difficult time with the ground floor being 1 foot from the property line. So I am inclined actually to uphold the appeal. On the other hand, I also kind of like the idea of Supervisor Tessier talking about, is there potential for an option 4? I mean, I hate to see this neighborhood split apart, and perhaps the Valentines could get together with the neighbors and see if there could be a compromise that could be satisfactory to both sides.
If I
Yes, go
could
ahead.
follow up on your comment, I'm clearly sympathetic to the Valentines in the sense that, everybody wants to have the right home for their family. The problem I'm struggling with is, I feel like we have some discretion here, and it's okay to make certain allowances, but I feel that the size is just beyond the reasonable allowances, and I think there's got to be a better compromise. I don't know if taking 1,000 square feet is that great, because you may get down to a 2-bedroom house rather than, and I think to be reasonable, a 3-bedroom house on a lot like that to me is reasonable. The parking concerns me because I know the neighborhood has those issues, but every time we allow for another one, we exacerbate the situation even more. So, you're always weighing those things. I would be more inclined to see, and this is strictly discretionary, but I think it kind of brings down some of the bulk, yet doesn't get us to necessarily the staff's alternative, but to allow something in the range of 2,200 to 2,300 square feet, because that would probably allow for a 3-bedroom home, still allow maybe the exception for the parking, which concerns me, but once you get to that 4-bedroom, if you have 4 people to drive, that's going to just add insult to injury. So I think, from my perspective, I think there is a better compromise than the 1,700 square feet or the 1,764, but I'm not willing to support the 2550. To me, it would have to be more of a 2200, 2300 to allow this house to be more of a 3-bedroom, even 3-bath house for a family of that size. And I think that's reasonable. It's going to be over the 0.56. I don't know exactly where that would fit in the scheme of things. Probably more than, I mean, I disagree on this whole floor area ratio, saying that even though the zoning, I don't know if I was on planning at the time. If I was, I would have had to be asleep to allow for that. So I'm assuming I wasn't on there. But anyway, I do think there may be that middle ground compromise, and it would be helpful. I hate for us to turn it down or give the thumbs up without maybe trying to see if something like that could be workable for the family, and come back with a plan in that range that, you know, gets rid of more of that bulk and allows for a good design, but not a design that really encroaches into the look and feel of the neighborhood, because it's a great neighborhood. They've done a great job on all those remodels. I just think this is too out of proportion for what exists there, but I think there's another compromise that could possibly take place, and I'd have to ask if they'd be willing to do that. And if they would, I would support something on that nature, but nothing higher than 2,300 square feet.
Supervisor Groom?
Thank you, President Horsley. If both the applicants and the appellants are willing to sit down and have another discussion, I understand there's been a couple already, but if there is willingness, I would certainly support that. Absent that willingness, I'm ready to support the Planning Commission's decision. I do believe that we have everybody has property rights. Previous property owners have exercised their rights. Now it's time for a new owner to exercise their rights. So I think that you have to look at that. The house that's behind the Valentine's home, sort of slightly to the left, is also, it appears to me in person and looking at the photos, a very large house also with a larger overhang, and apparently that was approved. And lastly, I think it's wrong to say because other houses have expanded and have now made the neighborhood larger that people who buy houses don't have those same rights. That kind of worries me, and I know that the last thing is the use permit issue has been explained to us. The Planning Commission found that they were okay with the rules under the use permit. So again, if you're willing to try one more mediation session, I would certainly support that. Otherwise, I'm ready to support the Planning Commission's decision.
Supervisor Pine?
I want to start by saying that and compliment everyone for the really impressive presentations that were made today. You know, I'm a former attorney, and I think, I guess I'm current attorney, but both sides just did a very good job making their case. I don't think anything else could have been added. So there's some issues that I'm not concerned with. I'm not concerned with the parking. There is a requirement to keep that garage clear, which is pretty amazing. I'm not concerned about the tree, and I'm not concerned about the precedent, because I think all these cases are difficult and are each considered separately. I do have concerns, though, with that front setback and the proportionality. I think it would be really worthy to look at potential encroachment in the rear more than in the front. You know, ultimately what I need to do, what we need to do is a pass judgment on the home and not the specific family needs. And that's really hard because we have a family living in this home. But this home's going to be here for 100 years, and there's going to be a couple families in that home. So ultimately, I'm not comfortable supporting the required findings that would support the proposal, specifically the proportionality and this maximum conformance with the regulation. Again, I think encroachment in the rear, though, could be an area where maybe there's a solution.
Yeah. Supervisor Slocum?
Thank you, Mr. President. And just for the record, I've along with my colleagues, I believe, visited the neighborhood, walked the street, talked with the neighbors, obviously, talked with county staff and others about this matter. And obviously, we've all read the staff reports and the letters that came in. And as Supervisor Pine said, everybody has put in a great deal of time and energy on this matter on all sides, and all that work and time and energy is appreciated. Just have a question and then maybe some additional comments. It seemed like there was a suggestion to ask the neighbors to get together and talk about a possible alternative. And I'm just wondering if there's a more formal process, Mr. Egemeyer or Mr. Byers, to do that, and what does that look like? How long would that take? What would be involved in that process if one does exist?
I mean, certainly the board does have the authority to continue this matter for a period of time, the time that you deem appropriate, 120 days, whatever the case may be, to see if the parties could work out a revised project that addresses many of your concerns. I think that authority does exist, and that wasn't quite the answer to your question, but in terms, so that if that were the will of the board to continue this matter, to see if the parties can come together and address the concerns of the board, then how that process is to work, I think is kind of empty canvas. I mean, it could be, just say, all right, parties, go forth and see what you can work out, or perhaps Jim has some suggestions as well. I mean, you can certainly they could get a formal mediator involved. I mean, that's a voluntary process, but I don't know, Jim, whether you have anything within your department that sort of facilitates that process as sort of a hybrid between the parties doing it privately and bringing in a formal mediator.
Right, the formal mediator could be a process. We're working within our staff, our capabilities. We have a zoning hearing officer, but we also have design review officers that are responsible for supporting our design review committees. So we have kind of that background associated with that. And then also there's the opportunity to explore, I'll say, a form of mediation with the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center, PCRC. Could be another party involved.
Could I ask Christina, representing the Valentines, if they would be willing to engage in that kind of a process? One of the things that I all of us have talked to neighbors, and I've got a sheath of about 30 some odd letters, and the neighbors did indicate that they were willing to compromise. Would you be willing to be part of that process?
We've tried several compromises to date, and it seems like their own compromises would fit within the second story setback.
JR?
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, if it pleases the board, yes, I like the idea personally of working through staff. I think Mr. Byers made a good comment. You could continue the matter for 120 days to see what the parties can come up with. But I think having been involved with PCRC, which is a wonderful organization, my history and past experience is that nothing gets done in 120 days. It can take 60 to 90 days just to get people to the table, whereas I think if we use the staff resources, strained as they are, with all due respect to Jim and his budget, which I hope you add to for other priorities, that might expedite and move things along where we have a first meeting, if necessary, scheduled, drop dead date, second meeting, so that we can be back to this board within 120 days with at least a revised plan that hopefully will salvage something reasonable for the Valentines, give the Board of Supervisors an opportunity to make the findings of fact necessary that Mr. Byers alluded to, and hopefully work with the neighbors. That would be our goal, and we're more than willing to do that. We'd prefer that the item be continued rather than have the appeal upheld if that were the leaning of the board. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I know one other quick comment is that there was a suggestion that from a design standpoint, which I don't want to get into the minutia on, if we were to reduce the second floor setback, encroach into the rear yard, it would make that rear yard a little bit less functional for a growing family. But it is an option that we may have to follow. So with that spirit, we're happy to go back and have the item continued and see what we can accomplish within a 120-day period before we come back to the board.
Adrian?
I'd just like to make a comment, because I don't want to make it even more difficult. I think what I'm trying to do is help the board give some direction to the family to come up with a compromise that accommodates as much of a need as we can for them, as well as trying to work it through with the size and bulk. And I'd like to see that we do continue it, but try to put some outside parameters to the tune of 2,300 square foot home, something like that. If it's a wiggle room, a little or less, okay, but that proportionality is an issue, but I don't want you to walk away with, well, we'll figure something out, come back in 120 days, and then you're back to square one again. I think I would like to see us give at least some direction to try to get it to a reasonable size that's a compromise between where you were with your last alternative and something greater than the staff's alternative, which gets you to about 2,300 square feet. If you could try to live within those means and be able to build a home and, you know, look at the front and back. I prefer the back as well, but it's got to work for the family as well. But I can't support, you know, the larger size, but I can support giving direction to get it to a reasonable size. So I would like to make that the direction we give you, continue it, and if for some reason you come back in 120 say it just doesn't work, then tell us that, and that's okay. Then we deal with it that way. So if the board would be agreeable to something like that, it gives you some wiggle room to work.
I think that's a reasonable compromise. Supervisor Pine?
But I guess I want to hear if the families will agree to that, because otherwise I'm concerned about supporting this at all.
No, I think I'm hopeful there's a solution here. I'm a little reluctant to give a specific target. I mean, I think the message coming from many on the board is there's a proportionality problem, there's a size problem, but I don't know what the exact solution is. Like, for example, even if it was reduced substantially, but the setback wasn't changed, that's still a problem. So I guess I'm reluctant to put a specific target number. I mean, I think everyone hears what needs to happen.
Christina, did you want to? I think Christina might be better at it this time.
Well, one of the items regarding our house is we're not tearing it down. We're adding on to it and remodeling it. So that 1 foot setback is always going to be there. That's always going to be an issue. And to move the second story back even further or eliminate that, eliminates our staircase.
That's been the issue structurally, is that would eliminate our staircase. So that's why we've kept. And
we haven't wanted to go into the backyard because then we don't have a functioning backyard.
Right. And I, you know, Mike and I, as we mentioned in our presentation, I mean, we've been willing to compromise. We're willing to sit here today and find a compromise that will work. And I understand what you're saying. If you send us away, you know, what are the parameters going to be? Because the stipulation is the 2,800 square feet, and we're within that. So where do we go from here? We are willing to compromise. This has been a 14-month process for us. We submitted our plans in February of 2012, and we're still here.
And we have met with the appellants twice.
And I have had several conversations with certain members of the appellant group, and that's why we're here today, because we couldn't come to a compromise, and that's why we're looking to you to help us.
You know, I have another idea. I'm full of ideas today. What if we put together a board subcommittee to work with the family, also be able to interact with the neighbors, and have a little bit of time, maybe a month or two, to see what actually works and is reasonable on the lot, that does address the proportionality, but at the same time, you know, if it's hard to give a number today, which I hear people aren't comfortable with saying 2,300 because you don't know exactly what something like that means, but I do think there's got to be, for me to support anything, there's got to be a compromise that deals with the proportionality better than the original one. So I'd be willing to participate on the subcommittee if the board agrees to do something like that. I think there's a solution. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think we can get there. But I do think that proportionality is a huge issue. If we can't get there, then I have to say I can't support that large a development. So I just want to be clear on that. I don't know how the board feels, but I'm trying to come up with something that helps you.
And we appreciate
We would
that.
appreciate doing that, having a board subcommittee. We believe that would be the most expedient means to bring this back to the board. And perhaps if we reach a compromise, it may not even need to come back unless it's a formality that is advised by the county council.
Yeah.
I think we have to come back. I think it has to come
You
back.
better have it approved.
I think we will have to come back to
I think you need to come back and have it approved.
Okay.
So, should we make that a motion then? And, wait a second. Sandy, did you want to say something?
Well, since they got quite a bit of airtime, I was just going to say, on behalf of the appellants, I think a board subcommittee might be a good idea. I do want to point out that we have 2 architects that are members of the appellant group, and I think it's important that the Valentines not be wedded to this particular design, because a 2-story house that does not intrude into the front setback and is proportional to the lot can be designed, and perhaps, as Adrian said, it's 3 bedrooms and the stairs are in a different place, but it can be done, and nicely done.
Thank you.
So President Horsley, I might suggest if again, this is the inclination of the board, that it'd be a 2-part motion, one to continue the matter for a period of time that you deem appropriate, and then second to appoint a subcommittee, again, if that's the will of the board. You would need to identify those subcommittee members now, though, before you make the motion.
So the first thing I do is make a motion to, or there'd be a motion to continue this item for?
Right. For a period of time.
And to no more than 120 days. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
And then I'll appoint a subcommittee of Carol Groom and Supervisor Adrian Tessier to work with the neighbors and the. What do I do now?
Yeah. Right. I might suggest that if it's going to be a board subcommittee, that the board determine who the subcommittee's members are, and then make that a separate motion.
Okay, a separate motion, then I'll make the motion of a subcommittee of Supervisor Carol Groom and Adrian Tessier to work with both sides. Now, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Could I? Okay.
I just want to make one comment. When we say not to exceed 120 days, we don't have to take 120 days. I want people to be, I mean, that's sort of at the outset, but, you know, we will get on it quickly because time's wasting.
Okay.
In the comment, I just wanted to add, since I guess this is my input to the subcommittee, just kind of repeat a little bit what I've said before, is that, you know, I'm really hopeful that a solution can be found. And the lot can't accommodate everything. It can't have 4 bedrooms, have the mass, and have the backyard. I mean, it just can't have everything. So I, speaking as one board member, am very open to encroaching into the back and moving it off the front. And yeah, this family and future families are going to lose the backyard, but again, you can't have everything in the lot. So that's my input to the subcommittee. That's something that I hope gets discussed. And again, I think encroachments in the back are quite a bit different than encroachments in the front.
Okay. Thank you. We took a lot of time on that. I'm going to take a 5-minute break before we handle the next item.
Well, I think that's good. I really respect you.
We'll be chatting again. Indeed it does.
Can't have it and nobody else gets there. I went that.
Whoa, good catch.
I got it on. Now. Okay, we're back in session, and if I could get you in the audience, I'll take a seat. Okay. If we can all sit back down, and we're going to begin the next item, item number 5. Item number 5 is to form and appoint members of a supervisorial district alliance study committee and approval of an outreach budget. So, yes.
6 recommendations regarding the formation and appointment of members to a committee that would explore the present supervisorial district boundary lines and determine if changes are appropriate and to recommend those changes to the Board of Supervisors. The committee would be composed of 9 individuals, 4 of whom would be elected. It's been recommended that Supervisors Tissier and Slocum serve as board representatives on the committee, and that council members Torres and Martinez serve as city representatives. The League of Women Voters has vetted the 30 applications that have been received for the public member appointments. You've also received a list from the plaintiffs in the Solari suit that was recently settled, and that information is included in your board packet. We're recommending that the following individuals be the public members for the committee: William Knack, Barbara Ariata, Hayden Lee, Rebecca Eisen, and Raymond Lee, and that an alternative public member be Eric Reed. In addition, we're recommending that the board appropriate sufficient funding for $100,000 outreach budget to be used by the committee in the process of reviewing supervisorial district lines. If you have any questions or comments, Mr. President, members of the board, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I have a number of speakers, but
could I ask a question?
Yes, you could.
Yeah, thank you.
You may.
Yeah, I understand that the $100,000, while it says outreach in the board member or in the board member memo, excuse me, it really may include other things like the geographer and the statistician and so forth and so on.
Right. It would be staff support for the committee to be used as the committee determined appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a number of speakers. The first one is Julio Garcia, followed by Sharice Domingo.
Morning. Honorable board members of San Mateo County, my name is Julio Garcia, and I work for Nuestra Casa in East Palo Alto. We understand that, that the county manager has proposed a list of 5 candidates and 1 alternative to sit in the community redistricting committee. So the board is free to adopt or reject the county manager recommendations. We're here on behalf of the community to urge the board not to adopt the whole county manager's recommendation list without considering the need for more diversity there. As a coalition that from members of East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and Daly City, we believe that we need to have more representation from Redwood City and East Palo Alto in the community. And Redwood City and East Palo Alto is the largest number that Latinos, African Americans, and Pacific Islanders live. So, and we urge the board to look at it and look at the composition of the committee. And also, we encourage to examine the list of candidates that was presented by the League of Women Voters. And also, we understand that Laura Martinez has been appointed to there, and she's a Latino, but she's representing a city. She's not representing the community members or members of the community who live there. So she will represent the city interest. She won't represent exactly the community interest. So she's an elected member of this. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. And next is Sharice Domingo, followed by Annie Loya.
Good morning, President and Board of Supervisors. My name is Sharice Domingo. I'm with Silicon Valley Debug, and we're also part of the San Mateo Coalition for Immigrant Rights. Debug works with a lot of low-income families of color in East Palo Alto, Redwood City, South San Francisco, who have loved ones facing issues within the criminal justice system or immigration systems. I want to speak on a particular candidate who I hope was just overlooked. And her name is Isabel Annie Loya. She's the Executive Director of Youth United for Community Action. And I would push the board to have her sit on the redistricting committee. I've known Annie since she was 13 years old. She's going to speak in about, well, after me. And really, she should speak before me. But I've known Annie since she was 13. I was one of the founders of Youth United for Community Action in East Palo Alto back in '94 when she joined our organization. When before it was an organization, it was just a dream. We were starting to build it. And when we said, let's shut down this negligent toxic waste facility that was located in East Palo Alto, was carrying the burden for the San Mateo County and Silicon Valley, she said, yeah, I'll do it. I've worked with her, seen her grow. She's 29 years old. I've seen her challenge herself, lead Black and brown youth who looked at their community hopelessly and have become those very beacons of change in East Palo Alto. She's intelligent, she's committed, she has amazing work ethic, she will follow through, and she will challenge this committee to commit to the spirit of change that the original lawsuit intended. So I ask you to commit to that change in all aspects of the process, and please allow her to sit on the committee and represent East Palo Alto, Redwood City, and San Mateo County to redistrict these lines.
Thank you. Annie Loya, followed by Odell Johnson.
Good morning, President, Board of Supervisor members, and staff. My name is Annie Loy, and I have resided in San Mateo County all of my life and lived out most of my years in the Bellhaven community in East Palo Alto. I'm here today to advocate for a seat on the San Mateo County Redistricting Committee. For the last 16 years, I have worked with a local nonprofit named YUCA, Youth United for Community Action, that serves as a safe space for young people of color to empower themselves and learn how to own their community and how they interact within it. And perhaps some of you have heard of us. I'm not here in my organizing capacity, but rather as a concerned citizen of San Mateo County. For half of my life, I've worked with young people in East Palo Alto who were robbed of a sense of equity. Our community has always endured the negative stares, the stereotypes, and a history of being the casualty in the name of progression. As our city was developing to become the community that it is today, there was redlining that discouraged and not allowed for people of color to reside where they desired. For years, East Palo Alto housed a negligent toxic waste plant, and even though the county claimed its fair share law, there's nothing fair about what we shared. There were no troops that rode in on white stallions to save us. We advocated for ourselves, and we won. We look to the left of us, we look to the right of us, and there is no other city in District 4 that resembles East Palo Alto. And here we are again having to advocate for ourselves. Since I was 14, I've represented East Palo Alto and YUCA in regional environmental justice coalitions that push decision makers to implement equitable policies for communities of color most impacted by the burdens of environmental racism. I've gone to conferences across the country and the world speaking on organizing power of Black and brown people living in the shadow of Silicon Valley. Most recently, our organization led a community planning process that involved over 1,000 East Palo Alto residents in helping determine the vision of the city's Ravenswood business district area. I teach participation. Currently, 3 young people of YUCA sit on the Youth Commission of San Mateo County, all from Bellhaven and East Palo Alto. I don't know if there's ever been a point in time that this many young people from our communities have sat there. I'm sorry. In closing, I would like for the board to really consider the future direction of this county. Will we be diverse, reflective, and representative and inclusive of all our residents? Please consider my candidacy for this seat.
Thanks, Annie. So Odell Johnson, followed by Paul Baines.
Good morning, county board members and also the president. Good morning. My name is Odell Johnson. I am here in regards to the redistricting committee. I'm one of the candidates that actually submitted my name to that list, and so I'm here representing East Palo Alto. I'm with one East Palo Alto community nonprofit agency in East Palo Alto. I'm the community organizer and program director. And so in that capacity, I am tasked with the responsibility of creating a community-wide movement and making sure that East Palo Alto is not overlooked. Historically, East Palo Alto has been overlooked when it comes to a lot of decisions when it comes to the services and the opportunities that come into the city. So I am here not for my own self, even though I'm one of the names that were submitted on that list. I'm here for the entire community and representation of the entire community. It doesn't matter if I'm the one that's sitting on the committee or the young lady that was here before me. It's just what matters is that we have representation in East Palo Alto in this redistricting process. And so I'm here to be in support of the entire community of East Palo Alto, and hopefully I'm asking the committee to, well, the county and also the decision makers to reconsider, making sure East Palo Alto is represented in the redistricting process.
Thank you, Odell. And last is Pastor Paul Baines.
Good morning, President Horsley and Board of Supervisors and county staff. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you. I'm coming to acknowledge my support. I've watched Annie grow up, and I can't really articulate any better than what Sharice and Annie and Lewis has already said, but I can speak from a perspective of I've seen Annie passionately look at the issues in our community and incorporate not just blacks, not just Latinos, Pacific Islanders, but people of all nationalities. I've seen her articulate the issues as it was when we faced Romic Chemical and no one else was going to champion the cause. Yucca stood up and championed the cause. Annie has a credible track record. I'm on this side of 50. And she already mentioned her age of 29 years of age.
You under or over?
I'm over. Watch it, President.
Surprise me.
And so I'm 52. The future is with our young people, and they need to have a voice at the table. There's too many times where we try to plan things for the next generation, but we don't have the next generation at the table. And so I strongly encourage you all to consider Annie as a representative, not just representing East Palo Alto and Redwood City, but also a young person, so that we have their perspective, we have their insight, because I can't go back, none of us can, and be 29.
If you ever figured out how to do it, give me a call.
I'm a pastor, but I can't do that kind of a miracle.
Supervisor Tessio, you had a suggestion that you wanted to make?
Well, first off, I've been taking young pills. Now you really disillusioned me, so. Okay, I do have a suggestion. I think truly this is a very diverse group, and when people say that Ms. Martinez doesn't represent East Palo Alto, I believe she does. When you get elected by your community, they're telling you they want you to represent them. So, and I appreciate the fact that our county manager recommended her. But what I would like to suggest, and it's not part of the settlement agreement, but I think if the opposition perhaps would be okay with this, I'd like to recommend that we add Annie to be another alternate. And I say that because you can imagine we're going to have 11 to God knows how many meetings throughout the city. There will be times where there'll be people missing. And I would like her to have the opportunity. I think you made a great case, but I don't want to take anyone away, because I think that a lot of thought went into this and a lot of negotiations over who'd be in here, and I think it's a good mix. But I would like to see you have that opportunity. I think being an alternate would probably give you that opportunity. I can guarantee with this many people and coordinating schedules, you will be at that table at least some of the time. And I'd also encourage those of you that have some issues around this and have input for this, also show up. These are going to be public meetings. So I'd like to at least make this recommendation now. The other side could say no, but if they do, I'm sorry about that, but I would like to recommend that we add you as a second alternate, so that you would potentially have a good chance of serving on this committee during that period of time. So I'd like to make that as a motion.
I would second it. I don't think Annie would be shy about giving her opinion either. Supervisor Pine?
I think that's a good idea, but just to ask a clarifying point. A lot of these meetings will happen during the summer. So, I think there'll be occasions where, 2 or maybe 3 members can't attend. So I assume in that case, if there's room for, if 2 people are missing, both alternates come on.
Exactly.
Right. I think that's going to happen.
Oh, I do too.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments, Supervisor?
I just wanted to say I would welcome the idea of adding Annie to the committee, but also wanted to just stand up a little moment for Laura Martinez and say that she too is a pretty young person when compared to myself or some of us, or you. So thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Pastor, and everybody else for the idea. It's appreciated.
So now we have a motion and a second. All in favor? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Annie, you're on. Thanks. So we're on to item number 6, to consider options for the use of unrestricted county general fund received as part of a one-time distribution of liquidated LMIH trust funds of former redevelopment agencies. So,
Mr. President, members of the board, as you know, with the dissolution of redevelopment agencies, the requirement that redevelopment agencies set aside 20% of their funds for low and moderate income housing means that those funds will, that have been set aside, will go back to the appropriate taxing jurisdictions from which those monies were originally diverted. In this county, there is about $59 million of funds in that category. About $10 million of that is currently under litigation, which means about $49 million is available for distribution. Of that, about $31 million is going back to the county schools, about $13 million to the county government, about $8.5 million to the cities, and about $6 million to special districts. In looking at what the county potentially could do with the $13.5 million, of concern to me was the various housing needs that clients of county programs had in mental health and drug and alcohol areas, returning inmates that are coming out of the county jail system and are in need of housing, veterans, etc. And so we have put together a list of recommendations that we would urge the board to consider when making determinations about the allocation of these funds. In general, we believe that about 25% of the funds that would be coming back to the county, or about $3.5 million, should be used for shelter activities. This county is woefully in need of additional shelter beds, particularly in the South County area, but in other areas of the county as well. And we think that population is the most vulnerable in the county, and that should be the first consideration for the use of these funds. So we would suggest that 25% be set aside for sheltering activities. 75% could be used for low and moderate income housing, again with special emphasis on those client populations that the county serves, and that for those projects that are in fact ready to go, so that these funds will actually be put to use and not just sitting around. And with that in mind, we had recommended that any funds that are not committed by June 30th of 2014 could be considered by the board for small-scale projects by nonprofit organizations for targeted populations. So that, in general, is the report and recommendations regarding the use of these funds. I would make note that, as far as I know, as of today, only one city has indicated its interest at all in matching these funds, and I think it's important, if these funds are to be leveraged and have any meaningful impact at all, that those other agencies that are receiving the bulk of these funds step forward and leverage their funds with ours to make a greater impact on the housing needs of the county.
Okay, comments? Okay, we have a whole bunch of speakers, so I'm going to start with Pam Frizella, followed by Chris Cantor.
Feels like afternoon, but I guess it's still morning. Good morning. What are you, the president now? Mr. Horsley? I forget.
Pam,
I'm sorry.
Behave yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Good morning. I come to you today as a member of the Board of Heart, as well as the mayor of Foster City. and also a volunteer at Samaritan House, so I've got all of them covered. Foster City's redevelopment agency, through the action of the state, had to turn over $12.7 million in affordable housing funds that were planned to be put back into our community to serve the needs of those needing an affordable place to call home. The recommendation before you seeks to dedicate 100% of these so-called boomerang housing funds, and for this we commend you and strongly recommend that approach. The 25-75 split is a reasonable approach that balances the need of the county to address county-wide homeless issues, but also recognizes the fact that these needs need to be put back into the cities like Foster City from where those funds originally came. With your approval, Foster City will move forward quickly with Mid-Penn Housing to implement the project we have planned on our 15-acre site of senior housing, and the county will see the benefits of 66 housing units online within the next 5 years. As you know, Foster City has dedicated 100% of the funds it received back from the dissolution of our agency, and we hope that you will stand strong in the support of the need for affordable housing in the county by approving that recommendation before you today. Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Chris Cantor, followed by Melissa Platt.
Good morning, Mr. President, Board of Supervisors, county staff. My name is Chris Cantor, representing Envision Shelter Network. As you can imagine, addressing homelessness cannot be done without shelter and transitional housing, and so we strongly encourage you to, or hope that you will seriously consider adopting the county manager's plan in reallocating this funding to the shelter and transitional housing services. In addition, the need for affordable housing and permanent supportive housing for projects like the Vendome, which has proven to be amazingly cost-effective and an excellent investment by the county, they're in great need. And so we would like to see more of these programs and more affordable housing for many of those families that are born and raised in San Mateo County coming out of our shelters so that they can afford to stay in our community. We thank you for considering this.
Okay. Melissa Platt, followed by Bridget Olms.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Platt. I'm the Executive Director of the Mental Health Association of San Mateo County, as well as the Chair of the Housing Leadership Council, and I'm speaking on behalf of both organizations at this point. Our cities and county rely on those who live, work, and feel a commitment to our community to participate, to support our schools, to buy from local stores, to be engaged. It's difficult to feel a sense of loyalty or to develop an interest in greater involvement in a place that you cannot call home. For many of the thousands of employees of nonprofit organizations, which is a great part of the safety net of our community, they cannot call San Mateo County home. The price of housing in our community is just not affordable for the incomes that they have or that we can afford to pay. Not being able to accommodate newly graduated or lower income earners who are our employees, our clients, or our children makes us all poorer and affects our quality of life. Each of you knows this. Each of you knows somebody who's been priced out of our community. I strongly urge you to commit the former redevelopment property tax funds to the development and support of affordable housing, particularly for those with incomes at or below the poverty level. And many of them are the employees of our nonprofits and our clients and our family members. I have also a letter that I believe that you received, but I'd like to give you the original copy, which includes signatures from close to 30 nonprofit agency executive directors indicating their support for this as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. Bridget Olms, followed by Joshua Hugg.
Your Honorable President and Supervisors, good morning. I'm Bridget Ohms, a consumer and a resident of 104 Cedar Street, supportive housing in Redwood City. According to the Reverend Jesse Jackson, never look down on somebody unless you're helping them up. In 2011, after a lifetime of illness, incarceration, drug addiction, destructive relationships, and alienation from my family, I was released from prison following a 9-year sentence. I was homeless, hopeless, and very hungry. with a less than 2% chance at a normal life. How many of us have walked down the street, seen a man or a woman sitting on a sidewalk or walking towards us, muttering words we didn't want to hear? We looked at them as if to say, "Thanks for being in my visual range. You pretty much ruined my day." Never thinking that they were someone's son, daughter, father, mother, brother, or sister. There are more examples I could give, but I think the picture is painted. I was one of those people. I am still one of those people. I'm a human being. I have co-occurring disorders, ones that have plagued me all my life. I was diagnosed with issues while in my teens. I wasn't capable of getting the help I needed. Additionally, there were limited resources. I have to read this because I'll cry. Available. At the age of 15, I was declared an emancipated minor and left to fend for myself. My mother had committed me to the juvenile justice system as incorrigible, so I couldn't get the support from her, and there were no one else to help. I was completely on my own to fend for myself. I started to use drugs to take away the pain and for something to do. I was addicted to multiple drugs, which led me to repeated incarcerations over a 33-year period of time. Following my most recent release from prison in early 2011, I was referred to the Spring Street Shelter in Redwood City. I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt that I would have been back in prison. Without looking at the DOJ reports, I can assure you I would have cost the taxpayers 100-fold than what it does today. As I become healthier and more stable and productive, if I hadn't taken that referral, homeless and untreated mentally ill want a sense of purpose and a chance to live in a safe community and be cared about. I have that chance. Why do we need supportive housing? The supportive staff is the whole key. Everything from A to Z. It keeps me safe, makes me happier and productive, and helps me learn more about what I can do, which is more than I think I can do.
Bridget,
Yes.
I'd love to give you more time, but we have a whole bunch of speakers. I did meet you and once at Cedar Street, and thank you very much.
I really urge you to help the former RDA.
Thanks for your presentation. Joshua Huggs, followed by Evelyn Stivers.
Thank you, President Horsley and rest of the Board of Supervisors for affording us this opportunity to speak to you about this important item. I think the previous speakers have underscored the reason why we've been in each of your offices over the last 6 months talking to you about why housing is such, it touches virtually every aspect of our community, and this is an opportunity really to make lemonade out of lemons. We've lost a basic, we've lost a significant source of income upon which the vulnerable and the low-income communities and sometimes not so low-income communities rely upon. I think the item that you heard earlier, I think it was item number 4, the appeal, I think served to frame our issue about the importance. We're very glad that that family had the ability to move back into San Mateo County, into an area in which they work and where they're active community members. There are tens of thousands of people who are not afforded that opportunity, and every bit helps to allow that dream to be true for not only the most vulnerable, but for also the people who create the vitality that is San Mateo County. And we urge you to not only consider this one opportunity, particularly in the collaborative spirit of our county, working with the cities that have projects in the pipeline, but also then beyond this meeting to think ahead about what's going to replace that gap, that $1 billion that was lost to the state of California for affordable housing, $60 million per year in San Mateo County. And we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Evelyn Stivers, followed by Mark Leach.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Evelyn Stivers. I'm with the Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California. We represent people that build, finance, and live in affordable housing. I'm also on the board of Housing Leadership Council. And, your leadership on this issue is so crucial right now. We have the perfect storm of housing problems with not just the loss of redevelopment, but huge losses from the federal level of CBDG and home dollars being lost. And that doesn't even take into consideration the sequestration that's going on. Not only did we lose redevelopment at the state level, Prop 1C bonds have been depleted. And at the same time, local jurisdictions that relied heavily on inclusionary policies have been tied up in litigation and with the overall downturn. So your leadership on this issue is just absolutely crucial. I really appreciate you moving forward with this. I hope that your leadership will help promote a sea change at the regional, state, and federal level to reprioritize affordable housing and affordable housing funding. And I hope you take into consideration a long-term fix before the budget fight starts happening, thinking about how to allocate an ongoing revenue source towards affordable housing.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Thank you.
Mark Leach, followed by Carol Eldridge.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My job here is to give you one really good example and then to talk about the groups of people that you're hearing this morning. The example is Delaware Pacific is what it's known as today, and it was called the San Mateo Police Department headquarters. It's coming out of the ground, it's progressing, and they put an application, or put out the application process. 2,507 families applied for 60 units. That really underscores the issue we have in this county about the need for affordable housing. My apologies to the developer, to the people that live in the neighborhood, and everybody that's been involved in that project, but it is not the most desirable neighborhood to live in. It's squashed between gas stations, a freeway, and several utility yards. So people still need housing that bad that that's where they want to live, because they want to live near where they work. So the other job is to talk about the group of people that you see here today. The Housing Leadership Council, of which I'm a part, and you've already heard a couple members, includes faith, environmental, developers, and labor organizations like mine. Peninsula Interfaith Action, Sustainable San Mateo County, Sierra Club, the Loma Prieta Chapter, Greenbelt Alliance, Nonprofit Housing Association of Northern California, Mid-Penn Housing, who is doing that project I talked about, HIP Housing, Labor Council, Building Trades. We're all part of this group, common goal. Let's house people in San Mateo County. So with that, Josh handed me, just a second ago, because he forgot to give it to you, but he meant well, 500 different, or almost 500 names of people that had signed a petition urging the direction that we're all urging you to go
Thanks,
today.
Mark.
Thank you.
Carol Eldridge, followed by Mark Moulton. Hart.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Carol. You should know that.
I know. We sit next to each other every meeting.
That's right. My name is Carol Eldridge, and I am here this morning, still morning, representing Peninsula Interfaith Action. I believe all of you are aware that PIA was organized in 1998 as a coalition of congregations whose purpose was to help develop social equity in San Mateo County and build stronger communities. PIA leaders are very concerned right now about the increased pressure on individuals and families in this county as a result of the alarming increase in housing prices over the last couple of years. They have gone up the rents have gone up nearly 20% over a couple of years. And as a result, 1 in 4 families in the county now uses more than 50% of its income just on its housing costs. So obviously this puts families in a very fragile position, and frankly, people are really scared about this. So the burden of these high housing costs are borne very heavily by communities of color and the working poor. They're also borne heavily by seniors. So people who have lived in this community for all their lives, raised their families here, worked here, they can't afford to age in place and in the communities that they know and love. They're being forced out. when I first got involved in PIA's housing work, it was the late 1990s. And at that time, we were seeing a huge exodus of people from this community as a result of the increase in housing costs. That exodus has intensified again. We're losing seniors, and we're losing all kinds of essential workers, people who are vital to keeping our community running, whether they're child care workers, home health aides, EMTs. So PIA is part of the coalition encouraging you to devote these redevelopment monies to affordable housing at a time when affordable housing money is painfully scarce. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Carol. Got it right that time. And Mark Moulton, followed by Kate Comfort Har.
Good morning, Mr. President and
Good morning.
Board of Supervisors.
Didn't see you this morning on the walk.
Yeah, we missed it. Thank you very much for giving me a moment to talk. I'm Mark Moulton. I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Endowment and Regional Trust and the Housing Leadership Council. And I wanted to just throw down a few sort of small, larger questions today. I think Carol touched on it. Who needs more housing choice here today? What is our role as a community? Creating housing choice in San Mateo? And what is our vision for 2025 and beyond related to economic competitiveness and our jobs housing balance? And those sound like kind of big, boring questions. But I think today you have an opportunity to commit funding, and it takes your leadership again to do that. And I'm proud to point out that you've already taken the following steps. You founded HEART, or co-founded HEART, with a community in 2003, and two of you sit on my board today. You have long-time, ongoing, supportive relationships with our service and housing provider nonprofit community. And you also created in January of 2005 a Department of Housing. I want to applaud the staff report that you're working from today, because it positions you to take leadership again, having helped to create the administrative capacity and the professional capability here in the county to be in place to ensure that your investment today in these unrestricted funds in housing choices, in improving housing choices for people, will be well used. Thank you.
Mark. Kate Comfort Har, Michael, or was it Michelle Beasley?
Sorry.
Kate.
Okay, hi, Kate Comfort Har, Executive Director of HIP Housing. I want to thank you for considering this proposal. HIP Housing fully supports the county manager's recommendation to reallocate the LMHF funds back into affordable housing. Truly affordable housing going forward will come from strong collaboration, something we do really well in this county. HIP Housing strongly supports this proposal, and we encourage you to go ahead and adopt it as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. Michelle Beasley, followed, well, this is a tongue twister, next one. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Michelle Beasley, and on behalf of Greenbelt Alliance, I respectfully ask that you allocate former RDA dollars towards the creation of homes everyday working people can afford. San Mateo County is often cited as one of the least affordable counties in the country, with minimum wage at $8 an hour and studio apartments going for $1,400 a month. We have a serious situation on our hands where families are crowded into small units and are working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, or are being forced to move far away and then commute back in for work. We have been exporting our housing growth for too long, and that is what leads to disappearing farmlands, clogged freeways, and air pollution. And if the region is serious about addressing climate change, then we need to get real about building homes that everyone can afford. People in San Mateo County care about the environment. Our parks and open spaces are the envy of many. A modern environmentalist also supports creating a diversity of housing choices near transit and jobs, and understands that the right development in the right place is good for our families, our community, our health, and our planet. So when a community takes care of those who work and serve that community, I believe we all do better. And I thank you very much for hearing this, and we appreciate your leadership on this important issue. Thanks.
The next person represents Eden Housing is Andre Papanas. I was butchering that pretty much, but I figured.
Everybody's laughing. They all know. My name is Andrea Papanastasio.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, that was a tough one.
Director of Real Estate Development at Eden Housing, and I'm here to add my name to the long list of supporters to this. As you all know, the elimination of redevelopment eliminated a dedicated source, local source for affordable housing in many of these cities and the counties. And one of the things that we can really do is preserve some of the money that's coming back for affordable housing to help folks who would love to live where they work, live near transportation, provide for folks who are homeless or special needs with the funds that are coming back from redevelopment that would otherwise have been dedicated to affordable housing. And I want to thank you also, and second what Abby Stivers was saying. San Mateo is taking the lead on this in the Bay Area and statewide, and it's a tremendous thing. And others are following. We're working with Alameda County and Contra Costa County and others, and they're all watching what San Mateo is doing. So it's a really fantastic thing that you have the opportunity to do to really lead the Bay Area and the state in this. So thank you for your action on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Adrian Etherton, followed by Pastor Paul Baines.
Good morning, supervisors, and thank you. As you said, my name is Adrian Etherton. I'm the Executive Director of Sustainable San Mateo County. I also have our board chairman, Bill Schulte, here with us today. On behalf of Sustainable San Mateo County, I urge you to keep these low mod funds for affordable housing, which is clearly a sustainability issue, as you've heard from many other members of our coalition. It affects all of the 3 E's that SSMC commonly preaches about: the economy, impacting our low-income employees from living here, and our businesses from finding workers, and the economic losses that occur when those employees go home to their other communities outside of San Mateo County to spend those dollars. The resulting 60% in-commute rate that we see affects our environment as commuters clog our freeways, polluting the air and increasing greenhouse gas emissions. It's also clearly a social equity issue. A couple of statistics from our upcoming indicators report: some 40% of the households in San Mateo County spend more than 35% of their income on housing. And the share of high-income households, those earning over $200,000, increased from 2006 to 2011. But the median household income in the county declined 5%, showing this squeeze on our low and middle income families. The lack of affordable housing also affects our health as individuals and as the overall community. The silver tsunami is coming, and we know that by 2030, about a quarter of our residents are going to be over the age of 65. The lack of housing options in our community prevents the seniors from downsizing in our community, keeping them isolated in their homes, causing mental health issues and longevity in their lives. TOD and infill projects, such as our recent Green Building Award winner, 636 El Camino in South San Francisco, also provide opportunities for active transportation. And these active transportation opportunities, public transit and walkable and bikeable communities, also impact obesity rates and other health impacts. So I urge you to accept the proposal as it stands and continue to work with our coalition in the future.
Thanks, Adrian. Pastor Paul Baines, followed by Devin Richardson.
Back again.
Yep.
President Horsley and supervisors and staff. First of all, I want to thank you. I'm a person that's pretty transparent, and I've seen at least 3 of you in the trenches advocating on behalf of the homeless. I'm not saying no one else isn't, but I'm just talking from my experience. And it touched my heart to see leaders of our county so serious about this particular issue. So I want to say thank you for that experience, and I want to say thank you for the young lady who, maybe she's left, but she came up and testified, gave her testimony, because it touched my heart. And I listened to the homeless who just yesterday was crying, and I was actually crying as a man. I believe in crying. I don't care what people say. on the work that some of the shelters have been doing, Shelter Network, We Hope Shelter. And I appreciate our city manager framing this up, teeing this up in a way that you will put the eye on homelessness. The housing piece was what we need. I agree with what everyone else said, but particularly in East Palo Alto, we've been underserved for quite some time. We had the highest amount of homeless people in East Palo Alto per capita. That is changing. We've done some work in the last 3 or 4 years thanks to the help of the county. We feel that if we can get some more support from the county, it will help us do a much broader, deeper work, as well as it will help us protect the work that we've already invested in, such as the We Hope Shelter building. We need to be able to protect that, and we need your continued support in doing so.
Thanks, Pastor Baines. Devin Richardson, and followed by Matt Franklin.
Good morning, President Horsley, members of the Board of Supervisors. Devin Richardson, Director of Real Estate Development, Habitat for Humanity, Greater San Francisco. Also serve on the Board of Housing Leadership Council as a Vice Chair. And the volunteers, donors, and homeowners, I'm speaking for both Habitat and for the Housing Leadership Council. And the volunteers, donors, and homeowners who join with us at Greater San Francisco's Habitat for Humanity share a belief that hard work and success go hand in hand. Every day we do what Habitat does best around the globe, but we do it right here in a very Bay Area way by coming up with inventive solutions to our area's expensive real estate challenges. Because we believe that when we invest in our neighbors' quest for home ownership, it benefits the entire community. I'd like to just talk briefly about the past, present, and then touch on the future. In the past, as you're well aware and know, that RDA supported a significant amount of financing for affordable housing. In our world, it represented about 1/3 of the total project cost for a particular development. RDA was often the first money in and often leveraged federal, state, and local dollars to build a project. Habitat has built over 50 homes right here in Redwood City. Currently, we're completing a development in Daly City, a 36 condominium development, all home ownership, 2 and 3 bedrooms, with the partnership of the city of Daly City. And we like to continue that. We believe that is the model and that is the way to go in the future. It is a transit-oriented development, half a block from Coma BART Station. It's on the Grand Boulevard. It's in a priority development area. And we will be completing that development within the next week. Presently, as you know, inventory in this county is very, very low. And that is putting pressure on the real estate market and the prices. In the future, what we would like to do is open the conversation up. Thank you for your support on this and this leadership on this issue, but we would like to also continue this conversation to look for more creative, permanent solutions to our housing problem in San Mateo County. Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. You want to make a comment then, Adrian?
I was just going to say, Devin, my understanding is that Habitat in Daly City is opening this Saturday. Is there a ribbon cutting? I'm trying to do the PSA for you, but if you want to say something, feel free.
Hold off. I didn't want to overdo it. Thank you, Supervisor. Yes, this Saturday at 10 o'clock, we are having a dedication event at 7555 Mission Street in Daly City. You are all cordially invited to attend, and we'll be dedicating that development to the new homeowners there. So thank you, Supervisor.
Thanks, Devin. And Matt Franklin, and I don't see Jack Matthews, so, oh, yeah, okay.
Matt Franklin with Mid-Penn Housing. I'm searching my calendar for our groundbreaking, which I believe is May 10th in South San Francisco for 636 El Camino. President Horsley, members of the board, I want to thank you so much for your consideration of this item and for your leadership on this issue. You know, it would be an absolute tragedy, I think, to lose this $60 million that previously had been dedicated to affordable housing. These funds are very unique in that they accrued in the past. So these were balances that existed in January of 2012 when the Supreme Court decision came down. And as you know, in the state law, the requirement is that every year 20% is set aside for affordable housing. And of course, the concept, the idea, the hope was that those funds would be spent alongside the economic development activities so that there would be a housing component year in and year out. Here in this county, in San Mateo, we know that that happened not for lack of effort and not for lack of a lot of great work on the part of you all and folks at the cities. I actually believe this county has one of the proudest histories of aggressively pursuing the planning and the financing of affordable housing. And that work was continuing and is continuing to this day. You heard from Mayor Frisilla about all the great work that they've done in Foster City, years and years of planning for the 15-acre site in between their city hall and the JCC. City of San Mateo likewise has a site coming out of the Bay Meadows development that is dedicated to affordable housing where they have the land as a requirement of the development, but they need dollars to build the housing. South San Francisco's been doing great planning around a former PUC site that just down the street from the 636 site. That's a little more of a quiet process, but a complicated one they've spent a lot of years on. Daly City has a publicly owned site that they're trying to create a productive use on. So I want to just briefly applaud this proposal. Really thank County Manager Maltby for putting this forward. There's a lot of pressure and demand on county resources, and I appreciate his prioritization of this. I think it's really smart. I think it's great that you're targeting the neediest folks. I think you will find match partners from the cities who will step forward and will bring resources to continue to work with you. That work's already happening. The one just brief comment, if I could, on targeting the neediest is that we're one of the biggest providers of permanent supportive housing in the county, and we found that integrating that population, formerly homeless folks with mental illness or mental health issues, are often most successful when they're integrated with low-wage workers. So I'd encourage you to be open to that as a use. We're doing that at Delaware Pacific. We're doing that at 636 El Camino. It's a very successful model. In addition to, not instead of, some of the other models that have been contemplated. Thank you.
Jack Matthews, actually the Jack Matthews impersonator is Pam Frisella.
Actually, I was hoping, I just want to say good afternoon. So Jack had to leave and he apologizes, but he asked me if I would read this. Pretend I'm Jack Matthews. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, supervisors. I serve as a member of the City of San Mateo and chair of the Board of Directors of Heart of San Mateo County. San Mateo has been a low-income housing leader in the county using RDA set-aside funds. A couple of years ago, we completed the Peninsula Station project on the El Camino Real near Hillsdale train station in partnership with Mid-Penn. 68 units of workforce housing. It took about 4 years to complete and $5.3 million of investment by the RDA to buy the land and make it happen. There were over 1,200 applicants for those 68 units. We currently have another project under construction at the old police station. It was already talked about. I think it bears repeating. Again, it took the RDA contribution of the land to make this happen. The first phase of 60 units has over 2,500 applicants. How do we create affordable housing without the 20% RDA set aside? Each of these projects I have mentioned required 9 to 10 layers of financing to make them happen, and the housing need keeps growing. In a study session last week, the San Mateo City Council directed staff to target 20% of the one-time reallocation of tax increment to affordable housing. In addition, we recommended 20% of the future tax increment should be used for housing. I have challenged my colleagues to make it 40%. At 20%, we might be able to build a 40-unit project every 10 years. San Mateo has considered funding acquisition and rehabilitation of apartment buildings as a short-term strategy, but that does not create any new housing stock. We need long-term solutions, and we need to all work together to address the affordable housing crisis. I urge you to adopt your staff's recommendation and beyond that, making a long-term commitment to affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Pam? Okay, comments? Supervisor Groom, do you have any comments, or Supervisor Pine?
A couple points. Again, I'm very proud of the county for the direction we're heading. Hopefully, it will set an example for others. Just one thing that just factually that jumped out at me. kind of just for the record, is when you look at kind of where the money is coming from, if you take the South City money and the Foster City money, that's 40 million of the 60, and that's 10 million of the 13 that we're getting back. I'm very pleased to hear Mayor Frizella's comments about her support of the program, and I had an opportunity to talk to the city manager of South City, who's also supportive of the program. And they're the ones who it's really 60, 65, 70% is their funds, so that's important. I like the emphasis on setting aside the monies, 25% for the homeless, and then within the remaining 75%, looking for opportunities to serve the high need populations. I know in South City there's some real needs with homeless issues. It would be interesting to explore potential day center given the Grand Avenue problems. And then, you think about the special need population, how incredibly difficult it is for that group. There's almost no opportunity there. So I had one question, and that's about the process, and then I had one suggestion. So on the process, assuming the board is accepting this proposal, does the county manager or board members have thoughts about how proposals would be vetted? And would it be helpful to have a subcommittee? Do we need a subcommittee, or would the staff do that? Would they come back to the board? How would proposals get vetted against the criteria?
Through the president, I would suggest that the proposals come through the housing department with a recommendation to the board.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a minor suggestion, give my colleagues' thoughts on this. There's the way this structure is now, there's 25% for the homeless, and there's 75% for these other needs. And then the proposal goes on to say that a year from now, if there's still money left over, we'd open it up to the so-called small-scale property acquisitions by nonprofits that, again, would be serving these really targeted populations. So I wonder whether I would suggest that this group just be put in the the core 75% group right from the start. In other words, if there's someone in the nonprofit community who came up 3 months from now with a great proposal to serve a special need population or recently released inmate population, and they had matching funds and it was really tangible, I would say just go ahead and put them in there. I'm not sure why that little group, we should say, hey, just wait a year. Because most of this stuff's going to take a long time anyway. So it's a minor amendment to say that just let's just let them apply with everyone else.
Can I just ask a question on that? Because, originally this was city monies and we're trying to put monies back in the city. I hear where you're going. I don't know that I'm opposed to it, but I think I would want that nonprofit maybe to be vetted through their city, that the city thinks that's the highest and best use of, or if they had a second project, because it was, the whole point is to give some of these cities an opportunity to get some money back to match with the monies they may have.
Through the president, one correction. Originally, that was county money that the redevelopment agencies diverted from counties and other agencies. But I think I think both suggestions are good. One, I think probably it can be included in the 75%, and the intent of that 75% is to see a leverage from cities and to have the cities come forward and say, yeah, that's an important project in our city. We want to put our money to match yours.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay, any other comments? Supervisor Slocum?
No, I just wanted one, what I really appreciate is the county manager really vetting this with everybody and trying to come up with a good solution because, everybody's hurting for money. But the other part of this is to see all the CBOs. We have incredible CBOs in this county, and for all of you to come forward, be supportive, recognize that we are limited, but we're going to try to do the best with what's limited at the moment. And, we appreciate your trying to get involved more with getting some good housing projects going here in the county. And also remember that I heard someone mention priority development areas. If you set up some of these in priority development areas, there's MTC monies as well. So, it's really important to look at where these pots are and how you can make the best of the dollars. And those are some additional leveraging dollars. So, thank you to all of you that got up and spoke.
Supervisor Slocum?
Thank you. Well, despite the fact that I'm new, I too, like Supervisor Pine expressed, proud of our record in the housing area. And I just had a quick question. Don't mean to put the county manager on the spot here with this, but I will. I was curious to know, you mentioned a new emergency shelter in East Palo Alto that might come from the $3.35 million. And I was wondering if there was a price tag for that shelter yet.
I have not seen a specific amount for the shelter. I know there's been some serious discussions, and I do believe that the planning for that is reasonably far along. And I would expect, if the board approves this today, to be bringing a proposal to the board with obviously the specific costs involved.
Thank you.
Adrian?
Mr. Malpe, I do have a question. You know, now that I think about it, on this 25% shelter construction improvements, and it's going through the housing department, one of the issues that was brought up to me, and I think I mentioned to you, is about shelter network in the Family Crossroads in Daly City. And, you know, it exists today, but it needs some updating and all. I would assume that could be a potential project that would also still go back through housing. It doesn't.
Sure
That's the
could.
type of thing where we want to save those units. and
Yes,
not lose them?
absolutely.
Okay, just want to be sure that's. Thank you.
Okay.
If
Supervisor Pine?
I would make a motion then that we approve the county manager's recommendation with the, with the one modification that the small-scale property acquisitions by nonprofits be grouped within the overall 75% category and have opportunity to start finding projects if there are any, with the understanding that they, of course, consult with their cities. Thank you.
Second.
There's, okay, a motion and a second. Any other discussion? There being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Mr. Malpe. Okay, we are now to item number 7, the county manager's report.
Mr. President and members of the board, in light of the hour, I'll just briefly discuss a few aspects of the legislative report, and I was going to include this morning or this afternoon an update on the budget, but I'll include that in my next report to the board at the end of the month. As you know, the current session of the state legislature is in session. Bills introduced in the first year of a 2-year session have focused so far on the Affordable Care Act implementation, changes to the Public Safety Realignment Program, lowering the vote threshold for locally approved taxes, and regulations involving the taxing of ammunition sales. There are 2 bills that the county is sponsoring, SB 636, carried by Senator Hill, that would once again repeal the RDA trailer language bill that the board is very aware of with respect to excess ERAF, and Assembly bill that is being carried by Assemblymember Gordon that would delete the sunset date for the child care subsidy pilot. In addition to these bills, my office is engaged in ensuring that the county received the approximately $300,000 that was from last year's insufficient ERAF allocation as a result of the actions by the state. Also in discussions regarding the allocation of growth and the development of a revised AB 109 funding formula, and discussions through various state associations regarding the implementation of ACA, and finally securing funding through SB 1022, if possible and feasible, for our jail project. We will continue to keep the board apprised of the legislation as it moves forward in the session this year.
Any comments? I just have one. On the one piece of legislation at Amiano House, AB 5, I actually would recommend that we oppose that, because I think what it does is it creates an entitlement to be mentally ill on the street, and I'm concerned about the effect that would have on public safety. Any other comments? Okay.
Are you just making a comment? Are you I'd like to see if we could take a look at that. I don't know. I
We
haven't read
could
the
bring
bill.
that back at your next meeting with an analysis.
Yeah, to see that.
That is controversial.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. We're now on to last board members' reports, and I do have one speaker before we do that. Jessica McCann. I guess I I can't read it, but.
Jessica Munn.
Oh.
I'm here to talk about the health and safety of South San Francisco city of. There's an application by Planned Parenthood to move in there and right onto Grand Avenue, which downtown across from the library and the city hall. It's already crowded and congested down there. There's a lot of parking problems already. The building is 3 stories. It has 8 exam rooms that they're making into it. They're going to be open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, a staff of 12. That means a large abortion operation. Now, they did say that they're not going to do abortions. However, the CEO, Cecile Richards of Planned Parenthood, said that as of January 2013, it's mandatory that all affiliates do abortions. They said also on the TV interview a week or so ago that they hope that they'll have primary care there. But actually, only 1.2% of all Planned Parenthoods do primary care. They are the biggest abortion business in the United States. They cover up child abuse. There's many lawsuits in that regard. They cover up the sex slavery and trafficking. That's been caught on video and auditory. And go to Live Action website. They endorse racism. They actually accept, and this has been caught again on tape, of money for black baby abortions. It's improper for the county health system to encourage abortion businesses.
Time's up. Thank you very much. Supervisor Groom, do you have a report?
Oh, thank you, President Horsley. I would like to say that our Take a Hike season began last Saturday at Flood Park and Menlo Park, and our next one is May the 5th at Quarry Park in the Mid-Coast, and that the Quarry Park Take a Hike will be part of the Streets Alive, Parks Alive program that we do that weekend. And we had a big, wonderful turnout at Menlo Park. I think it was because Supervisor Slocum led the walk. But we had lots of people and lots of displays and lots of participating not-for-profits. And it was a little drizzly, but it was a lot of fun.
Supervisor Pine?
You know, I'd just like to take a moment to actually commend the board for its...
You're welcome to take as much time as you want in that case.
For the way the board conducted itself today. I really appreciate, I thought Supervisor Tissier was very innovative in coming up with 2 solutions that are very helpful. I think the formation of this board subcommittee really could yield an answer to this difficult problem on 4 Perry Lane, and also your suggestion to add the 1 applicant as an alternative. So those were very, very helpful. And I really appreciate Supervisor Groom's comments, you know, somewhat of a dissenting view on that property. And I just think the board today acted in a very effective and in a very team manner. So I think it was a very good meeting.
Thanks, Dave. Supervisor Slocum?
Thank you. Thank you. As long as we're complimenting people, I would compliment you, Mr. President, and Supervisor Groom. We didn't talk about it today, but the report on strengthening the county's nonprofit partnership report back, I thought, in District 4, as you know, just in East Palo Alto alone, I think there are some 220 nonprofits operating. And as we move to the future, you know, it's I think a priority that we begin to look at how that nonprofit sector comes together and delivers services, and I think this is a good step in that direction. And I would compliment you both on the contract database and the access that will come from that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Supervisor Adrian Tessier.
Starting to feel a group hug coming upon me.
Yeah, I was going to wait for that.
I have a couple. First off, just a reminder that on April 29th, we are going to be conducting it's really an anti-violence summit regarding our schools, education, law enforcement. And we're going to be talking about, the schools and our law enforcement sort of standardizing their operations should an event happen at a school. We're also going to talk about mental health issues in our youth and how we can catch issues prior to them causing a violent action. And also how down the road can we share information between mental health, law enforcement, and schools so that we get the proper information to be able to actually help those children. So that's April 29th from 8 to 2 at Oracle. We look forward to that. It's in conjunction with Supervisor Horsley, Congresswoman Spear, obviously Sheriff Monks, and a lot of our city law enforcement as well. I do have 2 adjourned memories, and I don't want to. Were you going to do that one?
I was going to do that one, yes.
Okay.
But
Okay.
Oh.
That's okay.
Okay.
I may just comment. I'll let you go ahead and do it. I just want to say a little something about Bill Royer. When I go into my past, I actually worked on Bill Royer's campaign for Congress, and he actually won. And I did comment to our current Congresswoman, had she known me back then, perhaps she would have won. But since I knew him and didn't know her, no, just kidding. Anyway, that's how I actually got to know Bill Royers. I was in my early 20s, maybe mid-20s, and I had never worked on a campaign before, and I worked on that campaign and learned a lot. And he was just a wonderful individual. But I'm going to let you go ahead and do the details. But I do have one other adjourned memory, and that's of Elio Fontana. He died at the age of 94 at his home in Millbrae. He was born in Vancouver, British Columbia. He leaves behind his loving and caring wife, Louise Chessman Fontana, and his children, Mark and Valerie, and his 4 grandchildren, Teresa, Stephanie, Victoria, and David. He was a veteran of World War II, serving in the U.S. Ninth Army, where they fought their way through northern France, Belgium, Holland, North Germany, reaching Frankfurt at the conclusion of the hostilities. He took over his family business, which was V. Fontana and Company, which he presided over as a nationally acclaimed memorialist, designer, and fabricator for the next 35 years. He served as a member of the Jefferson Union High School District Board, San Mateo County Community College District Board, San Mateo County Arts Commission, San Mateo County Board of Education, San Mateo County Grand Jury. He's quite involved. The Daly City Colma Chamber of Commerce, Daly City Rotary Club, and the Olympic Club Board of Directors. He was an accomplished accordionist. Wow, that's a big word. And a longstanding member of the Musicians Union Local 36. He was also an active member of Leo da Vinci Society, the Pacific Club, Il Ginocolo Club, and obviously as I mentioned, his beloved Olympic Club. He was proud of his business at V. Fontana and Company, but most of all, proud of his family. So my sympathies go out to his family.
Actually, I knew Elio Fontana as well. In fact, I knew him when I was working at a gas station as a 17-year-old kid in Daly City on School and Mission Street, and he and his son, Mark, came in, and he's a great dad. He's a good guy. Bill Royer, who recently passed away, he was a little 3 days short of his 93rd birthday. He had an extraordinarily successful athletic, business, and civic career. Graduated from Mount Carmel and Sequoia High School in Redwood City. Attended Santa Clara University on a baseball scholarship, and he actually played baseball against Jackie Robinson in college. And then he was on a lot of local things as well, and he was an avid golfer. He counted Willie Mays among his golfing partners. He will be inducted into the San Mateo County Sports Hall of Fame in June of 2013. He's already a member of the Sequoia High School Sports Hall of Fame for his basketball and baseball prowess. Served in the United States Army Air Corps from 43 to 45. Had a very successful career in real estate, and as supervisor, as Adrian Tessier talked about his running for and winning the congressional seat, he started off as a city council person, then went on the board of supervisors. I remember him because in the back of my house there was a big flooding problem, and Supervisor Royer fixed it. And so he was. I have a deep and fond memory of him as a consequence of that. He did run for Congress, and had Tom Lantos not run and won, it would have been the Tom Lantos tunnel probably over Devil's Slide. But in any case, he only served that one time, and then in any case, that was the end of his political career, and he had a successful real estate career. The other person I'm very sad to eulogize is San Carlos Mayor Randy Royce. He died at the age of 62. I think we all know he had a really long, hard fight with cancer. It started years ago, and he suffered and suffered through it with dignity and poise. In that case, Bob Gracilli, the mayor, said the city lost a great leader and a citizen, and he lost a friend. He stayed on the council a number of years, even though he had been diagnosed with cancer, and he kept up a really demanding work schedule. And he was always an extremely optimistic person. So he only served one term from 2007 to 2011, and I think that the reason he lost is that people recognized that he was so ill that it was not going to be good for him. And in any case, he continued positive, fun-loving individual. His wife Yvette and Randy both lived in San Carlos for more than 30 years. They had 2 adult sons. Recently had the honor of giving him a proclamation from this board at the San Carlos Chamber of Commerce. And one of the really nice things is his 2 boys honored him at the exact same time. And it was just very touching as a dad to have your sons to be able to say things like that about you when you know that you hear that. It's nice to hear that before you're gone. Yeah, so it was really a touching tribute to him. He was the reason he got the plaque from the San Carlos Chamber of Commerce. He was the Citizen of the Year for all of the things. And if you read all the things that Randy did, he was just an amazing guy. One of the things that the most former mayor, one of the most challenging things that he had to do with really the outsourcing of a number of things, like their fire department, like their police department, like their park and rec department. He actually had to preside over that. It was very difficult, contentious, but he always did it with aplomb, dignity, and optimism, and I think the city is better for it, and it'll be a sadder world without him. And now we will adjourn to closed session. We've now returned from closed session. Mr. Byers, can you report on the outcome of closed session?
The board did not take any action today. Thank you.
In that case, I will adjourn the board meeting.